Chapter 851. Shi Tianhao had temporarily fused his dharma with his physical body, further enhancing his physical strength. King Taishan was shocked. Although I've heard that this kid's physical body is extremely strong, invincible below the primordial divinity realm, isn't this a little too strong? Even a primordial divinity incarnation realm expert would be injured if I grab him like this. Shi Tianhao stared coldly at King Taishan. His arms shook violently, shaking off King Taishan's claw. Then, he raised his right hand and smashed the 8-trigram sky-collapsing hammer, imbued with the power to shatter the void, on the wrist of the bone claw, completely shattering it. Shi Tianhao looked relaxed. He stepped on the white bone of King Taishan's left arm, as if he was climbing a mountain. He walked up towards King Taishan's torso and head. King Taishan's left arm shook, wanting to throw Shi Tianhao off. However, Shi Tianhao's steps seemed light, but they were rooted to the ground, completely unmoved. This was the result of him merging by An's innate mystique. Among the 4 primordial ferocious beasts, the Taowu was the most stubborn. Its innate ability was demonic qi. At the same time, it possessed an unyielding offensive ability like a maggot attached to a bone and an indestructible defense. Being entangled by An's innate mystique, it was too difficult for King Taishan to shake Shi Tianhao off. But Shi Tianhao's feet were extremely fast. In a flash, he was already in front of King Taishan, punching at his head. Primordial bone shroud. King Taishan uttered a few words. His head and torso were wrapped in a gray-white bone ball, forcibly withstanding Shi Tianhao's punch. It was a spirit-nurturing grade artifact of his. This artifact had no other use but a defensive function, so its defensive power was quite impressive. Seeing this, Shi Tianhao smiled and softly spat out a word. Boom! All the energy in his body surged, drawing all the chaotic and mixed spiritual energy in the void battlefield towards him. In the next moment, the spiritual energy suddenly quieted down. It did not disappear without a trace. Instead, it was preparing for an even greater explosion. It was like the calm before the storm. His fist was still pressed against King Taishan's primordial bone clothes, not moving away. At this time, all of the power exploded like a cosmic flood, engulfing the world's creation and all living things, rushing out with an unstoppable momentum. A crack immediately appeared on King Taishan's primordial skeleton robe. Quick! King Taishan's right-hand bone claw continued to compress and condense. In the end, the sky-blotting bone claw turned into a bean-sized pill. White bone sword pellet. The next moment, the pill flashed and turned into a pale white sword light. It instantly tore through the void and pierced the back of Shi Tianhao's head. Whitebone Lightstream Sword. If this sword were to hit, even Shi Tianhao's extremely strong body would not be able to withstand it. His head would be pierced through. Shi Tianhao did not even look back. His left hand grabbed the pale white sword light. The 2 fierce beasts, Tao Tai and Swan and I, exerted their magical powers at the same time. One devoured the heaven and the earth, while the other was stubborn and unbreakable. The 2 worked together to wear down the pale white sword light. And at this time, the rock palace crashed down once more. The dark green palace had already turned completely black. It gave up on the agility of shifting, and instead increased its strength to the limit. With a bang, it completely smashed apart the cracked primal essence bone suit. The white bone ball cracked open, revealing King Taishan's cold face. His treasure was broken, and he was extremely distressed. However, he was as calm as before, like a hunter waiting for his prey to fall into his trap. He chanted a mantra, and a 6 harmonies pagoda suddenly appeared above his and Shi Tianhao's heads. It was small and exquisite like a crystal, sparkling and translucent. The pagoda was hexagonal and had 6 floors. It was no more than 6 inches tall, but the eaves, tiles, and bricks of the pagoda were clearly visible. They were all made of bones. Transformation grade treasure, Whitebone 6 harmonies pagoda. Rise. King Tai Shan let out a low roar, and the white-boned Six Harmonies pagoda soared into the sky. When it rose into the air, it instantly transformed into a gigantic pagoda of 60 feet tall. It directly enveloped Shi Tianhao, who had temporarily lost the protection of the rock palace and was also busy dealing with the white-boned sword of flowing light. Boom! Boundless wretched green Six Harmonies white bone flames filled the interior of the pagoda, trying to burn Shi Tianhao to death. Burn him to death! Burn him to ashes! Burn him to ashes! Outside the pagoda, King Tai Shan blocked the Kunpeng Palace as he spat out mouthful after mouthful of green flames onto the white-boned Six Harmonies pagoda. His magic power of the Return to Void stage was fully channeled into this life-bonded treasure, pushing the power of the transformation-grade white-boned Six Harmonies pagoda to the extreme. The combination of man and treasure increased their firepower. Inside the pagoda was a dark green world. The white-boned Six Harmonies fire transformed into tens of thousands of thick green flame dragons that bombarded Shi Tianhao relentlessly. Under the siege of these raging flames, even Shi Tianhao's powerful physical body began to suffer damage. He activated the power of Taotai, but the rate at which he devoured the flames couldn't keep up with the rate at which the white-boned Six Harmonies fire grew. He activated the power of the Taowu, but it couldn't withstand the scorching heat that could melt even the toughest iron. He activated the power of chaos and broke through some of the flames, but there were still many more. However, Shi Tianhao's expression remained unchanged. Silently looking at the raging sea of flames before him, he chuckled. Compared to my senior brother, you're still lacking. After chuckling, Shi Tianhao's expression turned cold. Those who stop me from returning to the mountain shall die. Before his voice had even faded, a dazzling light flashed from between his brows. The light was so bright that it transformed the interior of the white-boned Six Harmonies pagoda into a vast expanse of white. The light didn't seem scorching, but the terrifying energy fluctuations it exuded shook the heavens. A large number of talisman characters appeared in the light, forming one profound pattern after another. In the next instant they suddenly scattered and regrouped, forming completely different patterns, one after another, repeating the cycle. The light shot out from between Shi Tianhao's brows, turning into a shocking rainbow. Within the rainbow, the figures of gods and Buddhas flickered, like a great bell, and the sound of the heavenly Tao shaking chanting rang out incessantly. This rainbow shot out like a sharp blade, directly splitting the green sea of flames and killing the tens of thousands of green flame dragons. Shi Tianhao's divine light of creation, the divine light of termination. It had once been seized by Shi Tianyi, but in the end it had finally returned to its rightful owner. Within it, the concept of the power of termination was the end point of all things, the breaking point. Wherever it passed, everything else would be interrupted, ending prematurely and being forced to draw a full stop. Wherever the divine light of finality passed, thousands of jade flame dragons were cut in half. Some were cut in half, some were decapitated, and some were decapitated. Anything that stood in the way of the divine light of finality was cut in half. The indestructible light that seemed to be able to end all things forcibly broke through the pale green flames within the Six Harmonies pagoda. King Tai Shan was paying close attention to everything that was happening within the Six Harmonies pagoda, and he gulped upon seeing this. Six Harmonies Skeleton Flame King. He tossed aside the Kunpeng Palace, and his entire body transformed into a streak of grayish-white light before flying into the Six Harmonies pagoda. His body instantly transformed into a massive green skeleton. He had manifested his Return to Void stage body to battle against Shi Tianhao. The Kunpeng Palace continued to bombard the Six Harmonies pagoda from the outside, but the skeleton completely ignored them. Instead, it joined its palms together and charged toward Shi Tianhao. The seemingly boundless Six Harmonies white bone flames became even more exuberant, and as large amounts of them poured onto the green skeleton's body, It also transformed into an even more powerful sea of flames, which attacked Shi Tianhao from all directions. Shi Tianhao raised his head slightly, and his divine light of doom flashed through the sea of flames, tearing through the green flames before landing on the skeleton that King Taishan had transformed into. The green skeleton evaded in time, but one of its arms was also sliced off. If a normal person's return to void stage body was injured like this, they would immediately be severely wounded. In particular, Shi Tianhao's divine light of doom was extremely miraculous. It could completely sever the spirituality of all things, and it was extremely difficult to heal and recover from. However, King Taishan cultivated in the paramount Great Tao of the White Bone Tao, the omniscient manifestation White Bone Tao, and it had its own unique characteristic. A piece of white bone appeared within the sea of flames, and it was immediately charred green by the raging green flames before reattaching itself to the green skeleton's shoulder. However, the lustrous luster of the entire skeleton had dimmed significantly. At the same time, without the protection of the Kunpeng Palace, Shi Tianhao was also severely wounded by King Taishan's powerful attack. Not only had his body, which had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times, been ravaged by the flames, but the 6 harmonies white bone flames had also been infused into the king of the underworld's Tao inheritance, which inflicted even more damage to his consciousness and yuanying. Shi Tianhao's expression remained unchanged, and he let loose a low roar as another extremely dazzling divine light burst forth from his glabella. It was as if this divine light was imbued with the secrets of all things and the passage of time. Countless patterns of light also surged forth, transforming into layers of auspicious clouds that enshrouded Shi Tianhao's entire body. His consciousness, yuanying, and physical body all quickly recovered, and he was as good as new. This wasn't a healing process, nor was it a reversal of time, nor was it a transformation of the real from the illusory to the real. Instead, he was able to instantly return to his original, unscathed state. Even the slightest change would return him to his original state. Shi Tianhao had unleashed another beam of divine light of creation, divine light of origin. The divine light of doom attacked while the divine light of origin defended. Shi Tianhao's combat prowess had become extremely terrifying. As the battle reached its climax, Shi Tianhao flew up and suppressed King Taishan with the divine light of doom. Meanwhile, he himself arrived at the top of the pagoda. Under King Taishan's furious gaze, he heavily punched the top of the pagoda. The green flame fire that filled the sky exploded with a loud rumble, and the 6 harmonies pagoda seemed to rain a green rain of fire. As if doomsday had arrived, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The world inside the pagoda shattered with a loud rumble, and Shi Tianhao's vision regained its brightness. He leaped up and rushed out of the 6 harmonies pagoda. At the same time, the rock palace fiercely smashed into the already cracked 6 harmonies pagoda. Inside the 6 harmonies pagoda, apart from King Taishan's 6 harmonies skeleton king of flame, another green radiance bone dragon appeared. It was howling in pain and its body was covered in crack. It was the 6 harmonies pagoda's artifact spirit. As soon as he emerged from the 6 harmonies pagoda, Shi Tianhao withdrew his divine light of Genesis and unleashed his divine light of doom to its maximal extent. A brilliant light flashed, and King Taishan's 6 harmonies skeleton king of flame was completely sliced in half. King Taishan was unable to recover this time, and he was directly sliced in half by Shi Tianhao's divine light of doom. His massive return to void stage body exploded amid a wail of anguish. The damaged 6 harmonies pagoda tremored violently in the air before transforming into a streak of green flames and flying away. Shi Tianhao's gaze was cold, activating the 2 creation divine lights together. His mana was rapidly depleting. Even though his mana volume and density were the highest among all of Lin Feng's disciples, and he was able to dominate almost everyone below the primordial spirit realm, at this moment he did not have much mana left. However, he still activated the rock palace and transformed it into a streak of green light, which blocked the Six Harmonies Pagoda's path again before crashing viciously into it again. It was too late to run now. Leave your life here. A powerful sense of fear emanated from the exquisite green skull atop the Six Harmonies Pagoda. No! Chapter 852. The projection formed by the jade skull was none other than King Taishan. He was extremely feeble at this moment, but he was also recovering at a slow rate. Green flames danced around his body as he gradually reformed into the Six Harmonies Skeleton King of Flame. The White Bone Path's death substitution technique was unfathomable. If Shi Tianhao thought that he had slain King Taishan, then he would use the White Bone Six Harmonies Pagoda to escape and be reborn. Although his power would be greatly diminished in the short term, he would eventually recover. Unfortunately, Shi Tianhao had already sensed something amiss when his divine light of the end struck his return to void stage Dharma body. Now that he had seen the White Bone Six Harmonies Pagoda flee, how could he not understand? The Kuan-Pring Palace blocked the battered White Bone Six Harmonies Pagoda while Shi Tianhao launched a punch toward the Jade Skull. The Jade Skull opened its mouth and spat out a massive white skeleton that pounced toward Shi Tianhao. Its bones were as transparent as crystal, and a foul stench wafted out from its body. Shi Tianhao harumphed coldly. Bolstered by the power of chaos, he shattered the white skeleton with a single punch. The disintegrated white skeleton roared with rage as its shattered bones transformed into a Yin character, which continued to charge toward Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao's expression remained unchanged as he activated the power of the Taotai. The fingers on his left hand spread open like a black hole, grabbing onto the white bone Yin talisman before shattering it with a punch with his right hand. The shattered white bones transformed back into a skeleton that howled with rage. However, before it could even move, the light before its eyes suddenly dimmed as Shi Tianhao stomped down on its head. Boom! This time, the white skeleton was completely crushed by Shi Tianhao's stomp. At the same time, Shi Tianhao's hand had already gripped onto the jade skull. The unmovable flames of extreme evil burned fiercely as the projection of King Taishan's Dharma body collapsed. Under the despairing gaze of King Taishan, Shi Tianhao opened his mouth and spat out a single word, Hong. A violent force erupted in an instant, directly crushing the jade skull into smithereens. The last thing King Taishan saw was Shi Tianhao crushing him, taking his broken white bone Six Harmonies Pagoda and primordial bone robe. Then, Shi Tianhao drove the Kuan-Ping Palace away without looking back, completely ignoring him. If he could activate the death substitution technique again, he would naturally survive, but unfortunately, he was already powerless. Shi Tianhao had also realized this, so he didn't even glance at King Taishan as he hurried on his way. Because he was certain that King Taishan would definitely die. For Shi Tianhao, there seemed to be a fire burning in his heart. He wanted to rush back to Mount Yujing as soon as possible. After the battle with the King of Taishan, Shi Tianhao used the mysterious power of the Origin Divine Light to heal his wounds. However, he was a little tired at the moment. His spiritual power was almost completely depleted. Sitting in the Kuan-Ping Palace, he calculated where he would leave the void battlefield. At the same time, he took out a medium-sized cloud forest tree trunk that he had refined continuously and absorbed its essence energy to quickly recover his almost exhausted spiritual power. I'm here. He sat in the Kuan-Ping Palace, calculating where he would leave the void battlefield. At the same time, he took out a medium-sized cloud forest tree trunk that he had refined continuously and absorbed its essence energy to quickly recover his almost exhausted spiritual power. I'm here. After a while, Shi Tianhao's spirit was shaken. The rock hall shook and a majestic power vibrated. In a certain area of the void battlefield in front of him, a strange crack suddenly appeared in the chaotic yet fragile boundary barrier. Shi Tianhao was about to drive the Kunpring Palace out when the spatial boundary barrier suddenly began to twist violently. The boundary barrier created by the void battlefield was extremely unstable to begin with, but now it was showing signs of mending. Even worse, Shi Tianhao was currently in the boundary barrier. Now that it was mending and squeezing him in the middle, the terrifying boundary power was even stronger than King Taishan's attack. I know you're in a hurry to return to the Divine Land, so I've been waiting for you here. In the sky, a black-robed cultivator saw this and was about to reveal an expression of ecstasy. But before a smile could bloom on his face, a voice suddenly rang out from the Kunping Palace. You! A mysterious power directly froze the distorted boundary barrier. Although it would only be an instant before the violent and distorted boundary power broke free of Shi Tianhao's symbol art, in that instant, a bright and resplendent divine light appeared in the Kunpring Palace and illuminated the heavens. Illuminated by this divine light, the boundary barrier that had been frozen by the symbol art immediately calmed down and returned to normal. It was the origin divine light. The black-robed cultivator felt a chill in his heart. He wanted to escape, but he heard the voice from the Kunpring Palace again. You! The essence spirit of the black-robed cultivator froze and his reaction came to a halt. By the time his essence spirit manifestation broke free, he saw an extremely majestic beam of light that seemed to be able to sever everything streaked across the void like a rainbow and slashed at him. Divine light of the end. Leaving behind the black-robed cultivator who had been cut in half, Shi Tianhao's footsteps never stopped. He had already driven the Kunpring Palace through the boundary barrier. The scenery in front of him suddenly opened up. It was so familiar. It was the boundless world, the divine land, and the Kunlun mountain range. Shi Tianhao sat in the Kunpring Palace and quickly rushed in the direction of the Cloud Peak Mirror Lake. Halfway there, Shi Tianhao suddenly looked up, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. Is there no end to it? The world within a radius of 1,000 miles shook and twisted together. Countless spaces overlapped and lost their original appearance. They stacked together like a sparkling transparent wall, forming a square that enveloped Shi Tianhao. Shushan's Shaozi sword. One of the fastest escape techniques in the Divine Land. It was a great Dao technique that integrated the mysteries of space and time. A middle-aged man appeared in the void. He had an elegant bearing and wore a smile, but no one dared to underestimate him. They could clearly see him standing there, but it seemed impossible to determine his true location. He seemed to be standing in many layers of time and space at the same time, representing countless possibilities and drifting erratically. It was Shushan's Shaozi sword venerable. He held a long sword, but only the hilt could be seen. The blade could not be seen, and only a faint sword light could be seen in the air. One of Shushan's 6 meridians immortal swords, the Shaozi sword venerable's legacy treasure. He saw Shi Tianhao and was a little surprised. Elder Jie left suddenly, as if he had something to hide. He asked me to wait here, but who knew that this Shi Tianhao would come? Forget it, I've already decided to fight with Xianmen Tianzong this time, so it doesn't matter where I am. Shaozi sword venerable was about to speak, but he saw Shi Tianhao expressionlessly step through the void and already in front of him. He was so fast that he was only slightly slower than his Shaozi sword. Shaozi sword venerable raised his eyebrows. Disciple of the mystic gate master, you are the fastest, but you are still not as fast as my Shaozi sword. In an instant, he revealed the image of a swordsman 20 feet tall, wearing a high hat and ancient clothes, and the long sword in his hand turned into a cold light. Shaozi sword venerable, who had directly manifested his void-returned Dharma body, flashed, and his sword intent surged. In an instant, it seemed as if he had transformed into hundreds of himself, but it was not a clone. Instead, he pushed his sword Dao cultivation to the extreme, and his primordial spirit escaped into multiple layers of time and space. The cold light flashed, and in an instant, it turned into a sky full of stars that flickered together. In an instant, it traversed thousands of layers of time and space, aiming to assassinate Shi Tianhao. The power of the Shaozi sword merged with Shaozi sword Venerable's sword intent, causing his speed to rise to a higher level. At this moment, he used the Shaozi sword, and the momentum was even more terrifying. It was as if every point of the void around Shi Tianhao, and every position, there was a cold sword light emerging at the same time. The sky and the earth were all sealed off in all directions. This sword even produced a different effect. The Shaozi sword, which was extremely light and fast, struck out with a sense of returning to its original state, producing an extremely heavy sword intent that froze the space and time where Shi Tianhao was. Space was sealed, and there was no way to escape. Time was stopped, and there was no way to escape. The subtlety of Shushan's Shaozi sword lay in its extreme speed. Before the enemy could even react, they had already been hit by the sword. Although Shi Tianhao's speed was fast, at this moment, he was like a snail in the eyes of Shaozi sword Venerable. Countless cold lights attacked Shi Tianhao at the same time. Not a single one of them was a feint. These were all terrifying attacks that originated from a great sword cultivator of the Void Return realm controlling an incarnation-grade treasure to attack. They passed through thousands of possibilities in space and time, transforming into real sword light. Kuan-Ping Hall was pierced by numerous sword lights in an instant. Even though it had instantly turned black and defended with all its might, it was like a banana leaf under a storm. It trembled incessantly, and holes like a honeycomb were pierced through it. It was severely injured. At this moment, Shi Tianhao, who was standing at the top of Kuan-Ping Hall, was hit by hundreds of swords at the same time. However, Shaozi sword Venerable quickly realized that something was wrong. Although Shi Tianhao's robes were riddled with holes, under the tattered clothes, there were only hundreds of small red dots on his body that was like cast iron. There was not even a single obvious wound left on him. Shi Tianhao exhaled and smiled at Shaozi sword Venerable. In the eyes of Shaozi sword Venerable, it was as if a ferocious beast had opened its bloody mouth at him. In the next moment, Shi Tianhao's fierce punch was already flying towards Shaozi sword Venerable. Of the 6 pulse swords of Shushan, what Shi Tianhao cared about the least was the Shaozi sword Venerable, which was the fastest and had the longest attack range, but the weakest in terms of pure attack power. Shaozi sword Venerable quickly pulled out his sword and retreated. He knew his own sword Dao well, and such a situation had happened before in history. However, as long as his speed was above Shi Tianhao's, even if he could not break through Shi Tianhao's powerful physical body, Shi Tianhao would not be able to hit him. Only he could attack, and Shi Tianhao would not be able to fight back. If 100 swords could not break through, then he would use 1,000 or 10,000 sword. As the saying goes, dripping water can penetrate a stone. If he just aimed at one point, he would be able to break through. However, just as Shi Tianhao threw out this punch, he spat out a word. Desolation. Shi Tianhao had created his own mystique, the last word of the black-yellow 4-word formula, the desolation word of the universe's desolation word. An extremely desolate and ancient aura spread out, primitive and vast. Wherever Shi Tianhao's spiritual power reached, heaven and earth turned into nothingness. All spiritual qi was obliterated, and everything returned to the barren, ignorant, and chaotic state when the universe was first formed. Wherever the spiritual power of the desolation word reached, the Shaozi sword Venerable, which was extremely fast, also slowed down. The situation suddenly reversed. At this moment, Shaozi sword Venerable, whose face was full of shock, was the one who was as slow as a snail in the eyes of Shi Tianhao. Chapter 853. Wherever the power of Shi Tianhao's desolation formula reached, Shaozi sword lord was immediately affected. Several of the fastest swords in the world seemed to be entangled with endless heavy shackles, as if they were stuck in a quagmire and unable to move an inch. Even the Shaozi sword, whose blade could not be seen, revealed its true appearance at this time. It looked like an extremely ordinary cyan steel sword. Shi Tianhao reached out and directly grabbed the blade, completely ignoring the sharpness of the Shaozi sword lord. He held on tightly to the blade, not letting Shaozi sword lord retreat. At the same time, a bright brilliance flashed from between his eyebrows, the divine light of finality that even Shaozi sword lord felt terrified and threatened burst out, turning into a long rainbow that pierced through the heavens and earth, slashing towards Shaozi sword lord. Shaozi sword lord was also stimulated, and a sinister expression appeared on his usually elegant face. He did not abandon his sword to avoid Shi Tianhao's attack. Instead, with a long roar, the primordial spirit of his void-returned Dharma body was attached directly to the Shaozi sword. He and the sword became one, and his magical power was pushed to the extreme. What he used was no longer the Shaozi sword lord, but the Li Ferocious sword lord. Among the 6 pulse swords of Mount Shu, the Li Ferocious sword lord had the strongest attack power. Endless cruel and ruthless cold light suddenly burst out from the Shaozi sword. Countless sword lights instantly filled the space where the two were fighting, and these sword lights all gathered together, turning into an extremely bright sword light. All the power was concentrated in one point, and it stabbed towards Shi Tianhao. The Li Ferocious sword lord of Mount Shu only used one sword to kill. Either the enemy dies or I perish. Shi Tianhao's right hand that was grabbing the blade suddenly burst into a mist of blood. Blood splattered all over the sky, and the majestic blood qi directly turned the surrounding thousands of miles into a lava furnace. Shaozi sword lord's sword did not stop, and it stabbed violently into the right side of Shi Tianhao's chest. The Shaozi sword lord's indestructible body could not be pierced deeply by the bright sword light of the Li Ferocious sword lord, almost piercing through. But at the same time, Shi Tianhao's divine light of the end streaked across and landed on the Shaozi sword venerable's primordial spirit. Suddenly, the resplendent sword light was cut off. It was as if someone had suddenly grabbed the sword light by its neck and twisted it. The junior sword venerate let out a wail of anguish as his return to void stage physique was jolted away from the junior sword venerate. Only the upper half of his return to void stage physique remained. Everything below the waist had been annihilated. The Shaozi sword returned to its original form, its radiance dimming all of a sudden. There was a horizontal stripe on the body of the sword, and countless rays of light gushed out from it, as though a person was bleeding. This magic treasure at the peak of the incarnation stage was severely damaged by Shi Tianhao, and it was almost intercepted and broken. At this time, Shi Tianhao threw another punch, and the violent power of the Hong symbol formula erupted. At the same time, the Kuan Prung Palace crashed down again. The two combined attacks sent the Shaozi sword venerate's severely injured return to void stage physique flying backward. The remaining half of his body was covered in cracks, and finally, it shattered inch by inch. Shi Tianhao, the junior sword venerate's eyes were about to pop out of their socket. His return to void stage physique had been completely shattered by Shi Tianhao. 1,000 years of hard work had been destroyed in an instant. With his return to void stage physique shattered, his cultivation level directly fell back to the primordial spirit incarnation stage. After the previous sword venerate Guan Chong, another Grandmaster sword master Guan, the junior sword venerate of the Shaozi sword lineage, had been beaten by Xianmen Tianzong to the point that his cultivation level had fallen. However, the junior sword venerate was still powerless to take revenge. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his grievances. His body transformed into a sword light and quickly escaped. Shi Tianhao looked at him coldly and did not chase after him. He retracted his fist and used his uninjured left hand to grab the Shaozi sword. Slowly, he pulled it out of the wound on his right chest. The Shaozi sword vibrated violently, and sword light flashed as it resisted Shi Tianhao. Silently, Shi Tianhao said, "Do you want to break it completely?" He gripped it with his left hand, and the violent magic power caused the Shaozi sword to tremble violently. The light from the horizontal pattern on the blade became more and more dazzling, while the sword light of the Shaozi sword itself became dimmer. Pulling out the Shaozi sword and holding it in his hand, Shi Tianhao once again activated the divine light of origin from between his eyebrows. It fell on his body, and the injuries on his right chest and right hand gradually healed. He returned to the Kunping Palace and sat down cross-legged, letting the Kunping Palace suppress the heavily injured Shaozi sword. Then, he took out the few remaining tree trunks of the cloud forest to recover his magic power. Feeling that his magic power had more or less recovered, he once again activated the divine light of origin to help the Kunping Palace, which had been damaged by the Shaozi sword, recover its damage. However, using the divine light of origin on someone else was much less effective than using it on himself. Shi Tianhao's expression was calm as he gazed in the direction of the Yunfeng Mirror Lake in the distance. The anxiety in his heart had already reached its peak, and he was afraid that he would still be a step too late. However, the more anxious he was, the more he wanted to recover to his peak state as soon as possible. Only then could he deal with the enemies who dared to invade his sect. Light suddenly flashed on the horizon. Shi Tianhao drove the Kunping Palace through the void and quickly arrived nearby. He saw that his sect's great formation was in operation. Within the formation, light, shadow, and mist fluctuated. He could vaguely see many people fighting inside. "I'm back!" Shi Tianhao let out a long roar and rushed into the formation. However, as soon as he entered, he saw a scene that made him go mad with anger. Xiao Yan had activated the Yin-Yang Burning Sky formation, but it was not used to attack. Instead, it was used to defend himself. He was being besieged by Xiao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal. The immortal imperial flag and the 5 divine badges kept flashing brilliantly, helping him defend himself. However, at this moment, the brilliance was much dimmer. When the Black Heaven Seal fell, it was as if a part of the sky had collapsed. With one collision, the 5 divine badges were sent flying. Seeing this scene, Shi Tianhao's eyes were almost spewing fire. Among his fellow disciples, he and Xiao Yan were the closest. Strictly speaking, the two of them were also the first 2 disciples under Lin Feng. When they were young, they had experienced danger and difficulties together. It could be said that their friendship was life-changing. In the past, when his parents returned to the Divine Land, they were intercepted and killed. When they were forced to hide in the void battlefield again, he was in seclusion. When Xiao Yan heard the news, he killed his way to the Yu clan to avenge his parent. At this moment, when Xiao Yan saw Shi Tianhao, his eyes lit up. He laughed and said, "You're back at the right time. Senior brother, I have something good for you." Immediately after, he shouted, "Sixth brother, send this kid to Jade Capital Mountain and give him what I prepared." Actually, there was no need for him to say anything. As soon as Shi Tianhao entered the formation immediately changed and directly sent him to Jade Capital Mountain. "Brat, it's a pity that there's no time for you to slowly figure it out. Whether you can succeed or not depends on you, but I believe you can." As Xiao Yan spoke, the last scene in Shi Tianhao's vision was his Yin-Yang Burning Sky formation teetering under the joint attack of Xiao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal. Shi Tianhao was directly sent to the branch of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree. There, Li Yuanfeng's expression was solemn, but his eyes were still calm. He flicked his fingers continuously, and one Dharma art after another was sent into the Yin-Yang Life and Death formation. He did not have time to be polite and directly threw 2 porcelain bottles to Shi Tianhao. "This is the Demon King Qiongqi's true blood essence that Master prepared for you. This is also the 33 days fortune immortal pill that eldest senior brother gave you. 6 Senior brother, you've worked hard. Shi Tianhao did not waste any time. He received the 2 porcelain bottles and directly smashed one of them. Immediately, an extremely viscous and stinky black liquid floated in midair. Light and shadow flashed in the liquid. It had a pair of wings on its back and was covered in the fur of a hedgehog. It looked like a cow or a tiger, and its cry sounded like a dog's bark. It was one of the 4 great ancient ferocious beasts Qiongqi. Light and shadow flashed above Shi Tianhao's head, and his heaven and earth idol appeared. The heaven and earth idol had 4 chaotic whole furnaces on its head. One of them was empty, and it was aimed at the Qiongqi blood essence. The black blood essence immediately entered it. Once the blood essence entered, it immediately turned into a torrential black stream of water. In an instant it was refined by Shi Tianhao. His chaotic whole furnaces had already been refined to the extreme. Once he obtained enough quality Qiongqi blood essence, he would immediately be able to reach perfection. Within the 4 furnaces, the hurricane formed by the power of chaos, the black water formed by the power of Qiongqi, the earth formed by the power of Taotai, and the blue fire formed by the power of Taowu resonated together. At the same time, the vast power of the universe spread out. The eyes of each of the 4 heads of his heaven and earth idol shone with a bright light. The light from his left eye seemed to be the end of all things. Everywhere it passed, everything would be interrupted and ended prematurely, forced to draw a full stop. The light from his right eye seemed to be the starting point of all things. Everywhere it passed, everything would start anew and be born anew. The end point was also the starting point. Shi Tianhao also shattered the 2nd porcelain bottle. The 33 Heavens Fortune immortal pill that seemed to contain countless mysteries appeared in front of him. He swallowed it in one gulp. In the next moment, besides his heaven and earth idol, another light flashed above Shi Tianhao's head. It was a youth that looked exactly like Shi Tianhao when he was 15 or 16 years old. It was his Yuanying. 2 years in the vast thousand worlds was equivalent to more than 10 years for Shi Tianhao in the void battlefield. His cultivation had long since reached the peak of the late Yuanying stage. Yuanying was extremely strong, and he could even vaguely see the illusory Yuan spirit door in his sea of consciousness. However, after trying it out, he felt that the time was not right. Originally, he was not in a hurry because he had just turned 30. But today, with his sect facing numerous dangers, he wanted to break through the final barrier and prove his way to the soul. It was not for the false reputation of being the youngest soul formation cultivator in history, but because his sect needed him to become a soul cultivator right now so that he could help protect his fellow disciples. At that moment, Shi Tianhao only felt the illusory door become unprecedentedly clear. His vitality had reached an unprecedented peak. He could clearly feel that all he needed was a gentle push. Countless memories flashed through his head. When he was still a baby, someone had stolen his innards. He was in so much pain and helplessness when he was young. In the tiny mountain village, he forgot everything. He lived a carefree childhood. He became a disciple of his master and learned the way, spending time with his senior and junior brothers and sisters. In the fated battle in the dragon arena, he sought justice for himself. His joyous reunion with his grandfather, his worry for his parents who were still missing, the invading enemies before him, his fellow disciples in a bloody battle. All of this transformed into the purest and most primitive energy, and it condensed into an incomparably powerful will that pushed open the ethereal door of the nascent soul with a bang. Chapter 854. Although the anxiety and worry caused by the siege of his sect and the previous bloody battles had consumed a lot of his energy, it had also allowed Shi Tianhao to condense all of his Tao and will. His understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth had reached an unprecedented peak and rapidly improved. After refining Qiongqi's blood essence and swallowing the 33 Heavens fortune elixir, Shi Tianhao had completely broken through the last shackle and successfully pushed open the door to the primordial spirit. His yuanying turned into a stream of light and rushed into the Dharma form of heaven and earth. The huge Dharma form of heaven and earth merged completely with yuanying and rushed into the opened door together. After passing through the door in the void, and receiving the baptism of the great Tao of heaven and earth, Shi Tianhao's Dharma form of heaven and earth collapsed and turned into talisman seed. Each seed was in harmony with the world and flashed with dazzling light. The light shadows of the 4 fierce beasts, Suani, Qiongqi, Taotai, and Hundun, also appeared in the void. They roared ferociously and enjoyed the baptism of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Their faces showed expressions of comfort. These light shadows quickly became clearer and clearer, as if they were going to materialize from illusion and revive together. But in next to no time, numerous obscure, primitive, and boundlessly vast primordial qi enveloped them completely, and then they fused once more into the numerous talisman seeds. The thousands of light shadows of the 4 fierce beasts struggled and roared together, but in the end, they could only fall into the talisman seeds. In the end, the thousands of talismans gathered together and turned into a huge Taiji diagram in the void that was half black and half white. The Taiji diagram was surrounded by waves of desolation qi. The Taiji diagram covered the sky and the earth. Wherever it went, it seemed to turn the world back into the primordial age. The phenomenon of Shi Tianhao's primordial spirit Tao shocked the entire Yujing Mountain. Even the people who were fighting in the yin and yang life and death formation were alarmed. The next moment, a loud and clear song resounded throughout Yujing Mountain. Calamity rises from the smoke and dust of the old, enter the Xianmen and return to the true. Swallow the black and yellow of heaven and earth, and the great demon god of the universe. After the song, the huge Taiji diagram suddenly turned into a thick pillar of qi that seemed clear and turbid. It fell toward Shi Tianhao's body, which was sitting on the branch of the mysterious heaven treasure tree. A strange stone suddenly flew out of a storage pouch that Shi Tianhao carried with him. Half of the stone was transparent and extremely clear, and there was a large amount of faint mist constantly swaying within it. The other half was like the heart of a living creature, gently beating, and there were veined patterns on its surface that looked like bloodlines. Laughter came from the thick pillar of air formed by Shi Tianhao's primordial spirit. Eldest brother, I've come back this time to bring you something good. After you get rid of these eyesores, you should take a good look at them. I'm sure you'll like them. Let me show you the effect first. The thick air pillar directly swept up Shi Tianhao's body and the strange stone. Then, the pillar of air shook violently. After a short moment, it turned back into the primordial Tai Chi diagram that covered the sky. The stone sword, Kuan Peng Hall, and the skull that originally belonged to Shi Tianyi were all thrown into the primordial Taiji diagram. The next moment, an earth-shattering thunder sounded. It was like the first thunder of the primordial era, when the world had just been born and the universe had just appeared. Then, the primordial Taiji diagram spun in the air and turned back into Shi Tianhao's appearance. On his forehead, the Taiji diagram flashed. He held a long sword that was round and made of stone. It was not sharpened, but it emitted an extremely sharp power intent as if it could split the world. The sword was a sharp Dharma treasure in the past. Later, after its Dharma treasure's primordial spirit was destroyed, it landed in Shi Tianhao's hands. At that moment, it had proven its Tao with Shi Tianhao and reopened its primordial spirit, becoming in essence sole Dharma treasure again. The huge Kuan Peng Hall floated above Shi Tianhao's head. Its power was unprecedentedly perfect. After Shi Tianhao proved his primordial spirit, the treasure could finally unleash its full power. On the other side of Shi Tianhao's body, there was a purple crown floating. Lightning crackled around it, resonating with the thunderclouds in the sky. Shi Tianhao's long black hair was still draped over his shoulders. He did not wear the purple crown, but this Dharma treasure, the purple crown, was a Dharma treasure that he had personally refined. It was closely related to him. Duo. Shi Tianhao growled. The purple crown and Kuan Peng Hall were put away, and his body turned back into the primordial Tai Chi diagram. In the center of the Tai Chi diagram, a figure suddenly appeared. It was Shi Tianhao's previous physical body. The primordial Tai Chi diagram once again turned into a pillar of air that seemed to be clear and turbid, piercing straight into the top of the body's head. Suddenly, a majestic and powerful qi and blood spread out. It was more dazzling than the sun, more profound than the starry sky. The powerful martial Tao conception condensed above Shi Tianhao's head, almost materializing. It was a desolate and ancient world. There were many ferocious beasts in the world, such as Bian, Qiongqi, Hun Dun, Tao Tai, Ong Pu, Kuan Peng, and many others. Among them were many demons that Shi Tianhao had killed. The violent power shook the world. Shi Tianhao opened his eyes and grinned. He had succeeded. When a cultivator reached the nascent divinity realm, they could refine this treasure together with their nascent divinity and corporeal body. Those who succeeded in refining it could separate their corporeal body and nascent divinity at will. The primordial spirit could fuse with the physical body at any time, rapidly nourishing the physical body. The primordial spirit's dermic powers would all be transformed into qi and blood of the physical body. It would not be inconvenient for one to use martial Tao. The martial Tao will and one's essence, qi, and spirit would be in perfect harmony. When the primordial spirit was separated from the physical body would not deteriorate. After being absorbed by the primordial spirit incarnation, it would automatically be nourished. It would also not affect the incarnation's various transformations and the use of Dharma spells and supernatural powers. 6. Senior brother, send me into the array. Shi Tianhao weighed the stone sword in his hand and took a step forward. The power of his physical body's qi and blood that shook the world exploded. Cracks appeared in the space where he was. Li Yuanfang activated the yin and yang life and death array and directly sent Shi Tianhao into the array. Moreover, he was directly sent to Xiao Yan's side. The moment Shi Tianhao appeared, he did not say anything. The stone sword in his hand directly stabbed at the black heaven seal that was blasting towards Xiao Yan. The sword stabbed out. There was almost no time gap. The tip of the sword had already touched the black heaven seal. At this moment, everywhere the sword passed, the void shattered inch by inch. Shi Tianhao activated his martial Tao. The power of the sword's stabbing attack shocked even Xiao Dongtian and the black heaven seal. The black heaven seal transformed into the blue sky and clashed head-on with Shi Tianhao's sword. The stone sword did not have any brilliance or sharpness, but it seemed indestructible. It forcibly shattered the black heaven seal's blue sky power concept. The black heaven seal smashed down, and the blue sky completely shattered. For a moment it was as if the sky had collapsed. The entire sky turned upside down and smashed towards Shi Tianhao. It was the true power of the sky collapsing. The blue sky above Yujing Mountain seemed to envelop Shi Tianhao together. Boom! Shi Tianhao was unafraid. Majestic power erupted from his body. At the same time, the tip of the stone sword in his hand suddenly flashed with a bit of light. It was the power concept that seemed to be the end of all things. It was the light of the divine light of finality. Shi Tianhao's martial Tao, primordial soul, and physical strength combined with the power of the stone sword in his hand, which had become a Dharma treasure, and integrated it with his divine light of finality. It was as if he could even split the sky and cut down the stars. When the sword slashed out, it immediately split the sky formed by the power of the black heaven seal. Facing the black heaven seal's body that covered the sky, it did not retreat and continued to slash. An ear-piercing sound rang out. The black heaven seal, which had already been injured by Xianli, was sent flying by the power of Shi Tianhao's sword. A clear sword mark was left at the bottom of the Black Heaven Seal. The Black Heaven Seal grunted. Xiao Dongtian, who was fighting with Xiao Yan, also frowned slightly. After Xiao Yan, the second primordial soul adept, the disciple of the Mystic Gates master, Lin Feng, was born. The third primordial soul, adept of Xianmen Tianzong's lineage, was born. The little guy of the past, the young heaven's chosen one, the expert who battled the heavens and earth today, Shi Tianhao. Compared to Xiao Yan, who was injured and could not activate the 5 Fire Lotus, or even the Yin-Yang Burning Sky Array and the 4 Fire Lotus, the current Shi Tianhao was even more ferocious. He was like a humanoid primordial beast. After repelling the Black Heaven Seal with one sword, Shi Tianhao did not stop. With one step, he was already beside Xiao Yan. He punched with his empty left hand, which swept up the primordial martial Dao above his head and clashed head-on with Xiao Dongtian's powerful heaven's hand. Both of them retreated at the same time. Shi Tianhao held his sword and stood in front of Xiao Yan. "Eldest senior brother, I'm back." Xiao Yan sat cross-legged in the void. At this moment, he stood up and walked up to stand side by side with Shi Tianhao. He smiled and said, "Brat, I knew you could do it." Shi Tianhao grinned and said, "Of course. If you can do it, why can't I?" Xiao Yan sneered and said, "You can continue bragging." Even though they were facing a strong enemy, the two of them stood side by side, fearless, talking and laughing calmly. Xiao Dongtian's expression was gloomy. He also came to the side of the Black Heaven Seal and placed both his palms on it. The Black Heaven Seal did not make a sound. It silently activated its own transcendence energy. The two powers supported each other and increased rapidly. "Rise." Xiao Dongtian landed on the Black Heaven Seal. The Black Heaven Seal lifted him up into the sky. He looked down at Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao from above. In the next moment, the sky collapsed again. It was as if the pillar that supported the heavens had collapsed. The sky came crashing down with the intent of destruction and impermanence, crashing down on Xiao Yan and the others. Xiao Dongtian stood on the top of the Black Heaven Seal. He raised one hand to the sky and spread his fingers. The 5 elements of the great heavens' 7 planets' true technique, Taibai, Jupiter, Chunxing, Zhenxing, and Zhenxing, were unleashed. He broke through the real galaxy in the sky and guided the power of the 5 elements' stars to descend. He transformed it into the power of the great palm of starfall and strengthened the Black Heaven Seal. The power of the Black Heaven Seal multiplied, and it was about to crush the void. Shi Tianhao's divine light of origin fell on Xiao Yan and helped him recover from part of his injuries. The two of them looked at each other and smiled at the same time. At this moment, the two of them simultaneously thought of something that happened many years ago. At that time, they had just become disciples of Lin Feng and traveled the world with Lin Feng. They were still 2 small qi refinement cultivators. They had escaped from the hands of monk Hui Ku, who was in the foundation establishment stage, and killed the giant snake that Hui Ku was raising together. Many things that had long been buried in the depths of their memories, big and small, suddenly appeared in their minds one by one. It was as if everything had happened just yesterday. Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao laughed at the same time. "What are you afraid of?" Amidst the laughter, fire and lightning shot up into the sky. Chapter 855. Bluish-purple, black, gold, milky white, and gold flashed with red and blue lights. Xiao Yan's 5 great true fires turned into a sea of fire that filled the sky, almost turning the entire yin and yang life and death formation into a world of fire. Standing in the sea of fire, Xiao Yan shed his human form and transformed into the flaming Taiji diagram. After being illuminated by Shi Tianhao's divine light of origin, his injuries were not completely healed, but they were much better than before. As Shi Tianhao laughed, a thick pillar of qi that seemed both clear and turbid rushed out from the top of his body. After wrapping around his body, he did not reform into his human form, but transformed into the huge primordial Taiji diagram in the void. Within the Taiji diagram, the shadows of countless giant beasts floated up and down, and a purple crown that flashed with dazzling lightning appeared. Then, Shi Tianhao's primordial spirit incarnation swallowed the purple crown, and the lightning on the huge Taiji diagram shone even brighter. As the lightning on the primordial Taiji diagram shone even brighter, the sky above Mount Yujing in the vast thousand domains darkened. Dark clouds covered the sky, and thunder rumbled. Countless thick lightning snakes swam wildly, gathering above Mount Yujing from all directions. It was as if all the lightning in the world had gathered there. Terrifying lightning bolts fell one after another, like a torrential downpour. They were so dense that the sky above Mount Yujing turned into a lightning hell. There was lightning above, and a sea of fire below, sandwiching Shao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal in the middle. Feeling this terrifying power, Shao Dongtian's 2 white eyebrows trembled. With a low roar, an astonishing brilliance surged from between his eyebrows. With this as the center, rays of brilliance shot out from his body, penetrating deep into the void, as if they were connected to a small world. Then, all the brilliance retracted, but the connected small worlds seemed to be dragged out of the void. These small worlds all gathered in the brilliance between Shao Dongtian's eyebrows, gathering together to form a fruit of the way in the shape of a wheel of light. The true fruit of the great path of all heavens. This fruit of the way in the shape of a wheel of light suddenly began to spin, as if all heavens and realms were operating together, controlling the life and death of all things in the world. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that there was more than one small gap on the wheel of light. It was clearly not complete. But even so, the power was still extremely terrifying. Shao Dongtian's fruit of the way was added to the Black Heaven Seal, and it immediately made the sky manifested by the Black Heaven Seal even more vast. It stopped the heavenly lightning from falling, and it continued to collapse, crushing the layers of flames. The flame Taiji diagram and the primordial Taiji diagram stood side by side in the void. The 2 avatars did not panic at all. Instead, they were filled with fighting spirit. 2 voices sounded at the same time. Qian, Huang, thunder, Lai. As he spoke, the heavenly lightning and earthen fire immediately became even more majestic and berserk. They began to explode together, the lightning and fire constantly mixing and surging. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, tens of thousands of lightning bolts descended from the sky, twisting and twisting between the heavens and the earth. It was as if there were tens of thousands of lightning pillars connecting the heavens and the earth, flashing nonstop. Below, all kinds of flames soared into the sky, turning into thick pillars of fire that shot up to the 9 heavens. The pillars of lightning and fire kept colliding and shattering, turning into dancing lightning and flames that filled the sky, wreaking havoc. Endless lightning descended from the sky, as if the Emperor of Thunder had descended, cleansing all evil and filth in the world. Endless flames shot up into the sky, as if the God of Fire had descended, destroying all evil in the world. The entire world became a world of lightning and fire, as if doomsday had arrived. Endless disasters, catastrophes, and destruction sounded the death knell of the enemies, wanting to bury them all. Under such violent attacks, even the sky manifested by Shao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal's dermic powers was torn apart. The blue sky shattered, turning into streaks of light that filled the sky. It was filled with the feeling of being at the end of the road, as if the heavens were really collapsing. Shao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal let out a muffled grunt at the same time. Countless rays of light burst out from Shao Dongtian's avatar, as if blood was spurting out from all the pores on his body. The Black Heaven Seal was even more charred. Shao Dongtian gritted his teeth and took out another true fruit of the great Tao of the heavens. This time, the Tao fruit suddenly expanded, turning into a damaged giant wheel of light that protected him and the Black Heaven Seal. This time, he switched to the Black Heaven Seal to assist Xiao Dongtian, adding all his spiritual power to the Wheel of Light that Xiao Dongtian released. An extremely majestic concept of power that covered the heavens and suppressed the myriad worlds was released. Although it was incomplete, it still shook the world. The ancient heavenly gate's supreme divine ability, the heavenly wheel. When Xiao Dongtian executed this divine ability, it actually faintly revealed a trace of the great heavenly wheel of creation magic treasure. The wheel of light suddenly spun, distorting the time and space of the heavens, isolating the lightning and fire. However, Xiao Dongtian's face was exceptionally pale, and his injuries showed signs of worsening. His heavenly wheel divine ability was incomplete. Not only was its might not at its peak, but it was also a huge burden on himself. At this moment, facing the continuous heavy pressure from Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao, he felt a bit like how Xiao Yan had faced the falling rocks and barely controlled the incomplete version of the five-colored sky fiery lotus. Although he had defeated his opponents, he was constantly injured. Although I guessed that the disciple of the master of the mysterious gate would be extraordinary after attaining the primordial divinity, I didn't expect that he would have such a powerful divine ability. What's more, he was only at the late Yuanying realm before, but he made a breakthrough while we were attacking the mountain. This is ridiculous. On Yujing Mountain, Li Yuanfang saw that Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao had joined hands to fight against Xiao Dongtian and the Black Heaven Seal. The only obvious disadvantage they had before was equalized, and they were even gradually gaining the upper hand. Li Yuanfang, who had always been calm, felt a little relieved. However, at this moment, the yin and yang life and death formation suddenly shook violently. An extremely sharp and invincible sword intent broke through the formation from the outside. A tall, skinny old man stepped into the yin and yang life and death formation with an ordinary cyan steel long sword in his hand. His sword chi soared into the sky. His intervention made the yin and yang life and death formation, which had been wrestling with the experts in the formation, slightly lose balance. The highest elder of Mount Shu sword sect, Jie Luosher. As he opened and closed his eyes, a cold light flashed. He looked around and finally fixed his eyes on Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao. One of them had made him lose face before, and the other had seriously injured the junior sword venerable while he was recuperating. Looking at Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao, Jie Luosher did not say a word and directly used the junior sword weapon, which traveled through time and space to kill the two's primordial divinities. However, a fierce clear light flashed across the sky and cut off the cold light activated by his junior sword weapon. Then, the light slashed toward him. Almost as soon as Jie Luosher appeared, Xian Li's emotionless eyes looked over. Although Jie Luosher did not use the heavenly immortal sword Qi, Xian Li still felt the aura that she naturally hated. Facing Xian Li's sword light, Jie Luosher did not dare to be careless. Although his sword heart was unstable and it was a heavy burden on him, 81 heavenly immortal sword Qi appeared immediately and turned into the 9 revolutions immortal Dao fruit to meet Xian Li's terrifying heaven-punishing sword light. The heaven-punishing sword light was invincible. Jie Luosher's 9 revolutions immortal Dao fruit had also been cut off by the fierce clear light. Jie Luosher was expressionless. He stabbed the cyan steel long sword into his 9 revolutions immortal Dao fruit, and the mysterious and powerful power of the Dao fruit condensed on the sword. The ordinary cyan steel sword turned into a white sword Qi. The body of the sword was like a coiling dragon, and 81 terrifying sword Qi circled around it. Each sword Qi went around 9 revolutions. Blood flashed in Xian Li's clear eyes. The clear light condensed into a line and turned into an even more ferocious blood-red sword light. It cut off the white sword Qi in Jie Luosher's hand. Countless rays of light exploded and filled the surroundings. Endless sword Qi shot out crazily, and the others who were fighting had to be careful. Seeing this, Jie Luosher's eyes lit up. Countless complex emotions flashed across them: anger, hatred, worry, desire, ecstasy. He suddenly formed a sword seal with his left hand and used his body to withstand Xian Li's terrifying sword light. But strangely, the heaven-punishing sword light did not cause any damage to Jie Luosher's body. However, the wrinkles on Jie Luosher's face became deeper, and his tall and thin body, which had always been straight, became slightly hunched. Seeing this, everyone in Xianmen Tianzong was stunned. The heaven-punishing sword returned without any results? Before the immortal dragon city reached the creation realm, its defense was already extremely powerful. However, it was still very difficult to resist the heaven-punishing sword. In the Battle of West Hill City, the sect leader of Shu Mountain Sect, Xian Longxing, could only face the heaven-punishing sword head-on. He did not dare to let the sword light touch him. In the void outside the Xiantian realm, the Underworld Hall Master Su Anda and Xian Li fought for a short time. Su Anda had used 2 life and death nether Dao fruits, which was equivalent to 2 primordial soul integration stage cultivators joining forces. Only then did he barely manage to withstand Xian Li's sword. The heaven-punishing sword had improved compared to before. Previously, it could suppress the reincarnation sect leader Shi Tianfang and the 6 paths of reincarnation Dharma treasure, the 6 paths of reincarnation sect leader. But now, Jie Luosher did not even have a normal defense, let alone attack. It was equivalent to taking Xian Li's sword head-on. It's not his own ability. He has some special treasure on him. Xiao Yan and the others quickly realized that Shu Mountain had indeed come prepared this time. Xian Li was temporarily restrained by Jie Luosher. The most direct impact was that Shi Tianfang and the 6 paths of reincarnation were released. After taking a look at Jie Luosher and Xian Li, Shi Tianfang did not stop. He attacked the yin and yang life and death array with the 6 paths of reincarnation. He was ready to break out of the array and land on the Jade Capital Mountain. The situation suddenly became critical again. At this time, the void outside the yin and yang life and death formation split open, and several figures walked out of it. The one in the lead had white hair fluttering behind his back, and his expression was cold and indifferent. He was Wang Lin, who had rushed back from the southern wasteland without stopping for thousands of miles. Wang Lin was still in the late Yuanying realm, but his eyes were shining. Compared to the past, there seemed to be something more. Behind him, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, and Kong Nanhua stood side by side in a row. Wang Lin did not look back. He directly stepped into the array and said calmly, "Fifth junior brother, you go to the All Heavens Hall. 4th junior sister, Mr. Kong, and I will enter the array." Chapter 856. Wang Lin and the others finally made it back in time. Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, Li Yuanfang, and Luo Qingwu were all in high spirit. However, Shi Tianfang, a Dao integration stage cultivator, and the 6 paths of reincarnation Dharma treasure at the pinnacle of the Mahayana realm, were still under immense pressure. Wang Lin unfurled the dark sky god sealing banner and released 3 underworld hall emissaries. They released a large amount of gray mist that formed a giant oval egg. This was the underworld hall's powerful defensive spell, the Dark Sea Barrier. Shi Tianfang pointed a finger at the Dark Sea Barrier, and it immediately began to shake and crack. The primordial spirits of the 3 underworld hall emissaries shook violently and almost shattered. The Dark Sea Barrier could block the attack of Sikong Yu, who was at the Void Return Realm, but it did not mean that it could block Shi Tianfang, who was at the Dao integration stage. This was under the circumstances that Shi Tianfang had already been injured by Xian Li. Otherwise, the finger would have completely shattered the Dark Sea Barrier and killed the 3 underworld hall emissaries. However, Shi Tianfang had no choice but to stop on his way to the Jade Capital Mountain. He looked at the white-haired young man before him expressionlessly. Wang Lin's expression was also cold and calm. The 4-faced, 8-armed Dharma idol had already appeared above his head. Above the Dharma idol, the light and shadow of a grand hall gradually solidified. This hall was as lofty as a city, and the main entrance was like a city gate. All the bricks and stones that formed the hall were pitch black. As one approached, one could clearly feel the heavy power contained within it, as well as the unique aura of the almost solidified cycle of life and death. Wang Lin's Yellow Spring's fourth technique, Emperor Yan's Hall. Shi Tianfang frowned when he saw Emperor Yan's Hall. Wang Lin, who had yet to form a primordial spirit, was not much of a threat in his eyes. However, Wang Lin's spell gave him a very complicated feeling. It was very familiar but also very uncomfortable. Deep in his heart, there was even a faint trace of fear and dread. This trace of fear did not come from Wang Lin himself, but from the power of his Emperor Yan's Hall mystique. Although he was unwilling to admit it, there was a voice in Shi Tianfang's heart that told him that Wang Lin's Dharma art actually had a hint of containing and restraining the various techniques of his reincarnation doctrine. This was just a beginning, but Shi Tianfang's cultivation level was at the Tao integration realm, and he had a deep understanding of the Tao of heaven and earth. Just by looking at Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's Hall, he could feel that the Yellow Springs Tao that Wang Lin had created had not reached its end, and there was still potential to be unearthed. If he continued on this path, it would no longer be a mere bud. Instead, it would truly grow into a towering tree. It would truly evolve into a great Tao that could restrain the techniques of the reincarnation sect. It was hard to say if there was a large difference in cultivation level. However, if the cultivation level was the same, or if the difference was very small, then the entire reincarnation sect would have to take a detour when they saw Wang Lin, and even those who cultivated the techniques of Wang Lin's lineage. Otherwise, they would be completely at his mercy. This discovery made Shi Tianfang's murderous intent soar. He slowed down as he descended to the peak of Yujing Mountain. He turned around and pointed again. This time, the dark sea barrier was completely shattered. The 3 underworld hall emissaries wailed as their primordial spirit avatars exploded. Wang Lin's expression did not change at all. He activated the Emperor Yan's Hall mystique to protect himself and patted the flagpole of the Xiantian God sealing flag. A violent red light flashed and blazing lava spewed out. A mighty-looking red-haired elder stepped out. He was one of the 2 grand elders of the Heavenly Pool sect in the past, Elder Hua. When Elder Hua saw Shi Tianfang, who was at the Tao integration realm, he cursed under his breath. However, he was restrained by the Xiantian God sealing flag and had no choice but to listen to Wang Lin's commands as he charged toward Shi Tianfang. Shi Tianfang was expressionless. He pointed his finger again, piercing through the blazing flames and arriving before Elder Hua. He pointed his finger at Elder Hua's chest. Elder Hua's chest exploded instantly, and fire splattered everywhere. Little B** starred. The hot-tempered Elder Hua was not cursing Shi Tianfang. Instead, he was cursing Wang Lin. However, no matter how displeased he was, he could only continue to charge forward. He transformed into a huge volcano and revealed his return to void Dharma physique. He fought with Shi Tianfang and was almost killed by Shi Tianfang. However, under Wang Lin's commands, he completely disregarded his own safety and fought with his life on the line. From the looks of it, it was clear that he wanted to pose a threat to Shi Tianfang even if he did not care about his own life. Moreover, Wang Lin would not allow him to die in Shi Tianfang's hands for nothing. Therefore, he unleashed his 4 symbols realm technique and Yellow Springs technique without holding back and joined forces with Elder Hua to attack Shi Tianfang. To Wang Lin, Elder Hua's death did not hurt him at all. However, since he was going to die, he had to make his death worthwhile. He had to make Shi Tianfang pay the price. Wang Lin could not form a primordial spirit. Even if the 2 of them joined forces, Shi Tianfang would not care. However, he did not want to get hurt. The current situation was complicated. Even if they managed to break through Xianmen Tianzong's defense, it was still hard to say who would get the Jade Capital Mountain, White Jade Pillar, and other treasures. He had to ensure that he was in peak condition as much as possible. Since he had already been injured by Xianli, he had to be more careful now. Otherwise, his strength would drop even further. However, even so, he still had the upper hand. Moreover, his advantage continued to expand. Shi Tianfang stared at Wang Lin. His killing intent had already been triggered. In the void, his figure suddenly flashed, and he appeared below Elder Hua's volcano Dharma body. A dazzling colorful pillar of light suddenly appeared above Shi Tianfang's head. It was filled with an immortal and indestructible aura. Reincarnation Sect's secret Great Tao technique, immortal heavenly divine light. Sit and watch as all beings enter the cycle of reincarnation. I am immortal and have no limits. This divine power was one of the best divine powers and Dharma spells in the entire reincarnation sect. During the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly, reincarnation sect's heavenly path disciple, Yang Likuan, used this technique to fight against Xianmen Tianzong's disciple, Zhou Yunsong. However, it was countered by Zhou Yunsong. Right now, the same technique was unleashed by Shi Tianfang. The difference was like clouds and mud. Compared to Shi Tianfang, Yang Likuan's immortal heavenly divine light was not even comparable to a firefly. The defensive power of this technique was astonishing. However, when Shi Tianfang used it to attack, its power was equally earth-shattering. It was as though a heavenly pillar of divine light shot into the sky. In an instant, it pierced through Elder Hua's volcano Dharma body from bottom to top. Wang Lin unleashed the true and false realm mystique of the four symbols realm Dharma in an attempt to reverse the outcome. However, between Shi Tianfang's eyes, there was a faint image of the six Daos revolving and the reincarnation of all beings. He saw through the transformation of true and false and displayed the concept of all things becoming void. He actually forced back Wang Lin's true and false realm. At the same time, the dazzling pillar of light continued to expand in all directions. It became thicker and thicker. As Elder Hua roared angrily, it directly caused the volcano to explode from the inside. It disintegrated and shattered into endless streams of fire. The longtime elder of the Tianqi sect had fallen just like that. Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall flew over at this moment. Shi Tianfang, who was protected by the immortal heavenly light of the heavenly Tao, also swayed from the impact. Seeing that Elder Hua had been killed, Wang Lin's expression didn't change in the slightest. He didn't stop for a moment and slapped the flagpole again. As a cold light flashed, a white-haired elder in white who exuded waves of chilly aura appeared. It was Elder Ice of the Tianqi sect's Ice and Fire Elders. Elder Ice's gaze kept shifting between Shi Tianfang and Wang Lin. His eyes were filled with rage and helplessness. When he looked at Wang Lin, his heart was filled with even more hatred. However, he still couldn't break free from the shackles of the Xiantian God sealing banner. He could only change his form and reveal his void return realm body just like Elder Hua. Under Wang Lin's command, Elder Ice morphed into an ethereal blue light that resembled icy mist. He took over Elder Hua's position and charged forward to continue his battle with Shi Tianfang. On the other side, Yu Hongyan, Kong Nanhua, and the others also joined in the battle against the other primordial spirit incarnation level enemies. As for Yang Qing, she was directly sent to the peak of the Jade Capital Mountain by Li Yuanfang's Yin and Yang life and death array. After Xianli forced back the Six Paths wheel with a sword strike, she was entangled by the falling rock. The Six Paths wheel rotated loudly and landed on the peak of the Jade Capital Mountain. When Yang Qing reached the mountain, she nodded at Li Yuanfang, who was on the branch of the Xian Tianbao treasure, and flew into the All Heavens Hall without saying anything. Yang Qing's gaze swept across the light spheres in the main hall. These light spheres were all small worlds. Inside them were the Foundation disciples on the cloud peak, the citizens of the celestial sect who were close to the celestial sect of the Cloud Mirror City, and many citizens of the celestial realm. The true disciples of the various cave abodes were also settled in the many worlds of the divine sense. Only Dao Yuding stood silently in the center of the hall. She was the backup. If Yang Qing and the others could not make it back in time, she, who had the highest cultivation level among the true disciples, could only replace them at the crucial moment. Seeing Yang Qing's arrival, Dao Yuding bowed and greeted, "Fifth Martial Uncle." Yang Qing nodded calmly. He walked to the steps in front of the main seat and sat down. His eyes, one gold and one green, suddenly turned white and the other black. A bright light flashed on top of his head and a baby emerged, yuaning out of his body. According to the method left by his teacher, Lin Feng, Yang Qing connected his consciousness with the All Heavens Hall. A loud bang sounded in his mind, and the scene in front of him changed completely. There was only the endless starry sky and the yellow spring. Above the majestic All Heavens Hall, a bright light suddenly burst out. In the light, above the top of the hall, an illusory nebula gradually condensed into a solid form. It was as bright as the Milky Way, profound, vast, and boundless. As the stars moved, the 7 luminaries of the All Heavens hung above the Milky Way like the ruler of the All Heavens, controlling everything. At the bottom of the hall's 9-story foundation, it was quiet and dark. A luminous wheel was faintly turning as if it was the netherworld's samsara. The two forces combined together, and a bright light spread out in all directions. It was like a layer of light film, shrouding the Yujing Mountain, the mystic heavenly treasure tree, and the cyclic purple chi. It became the second layer of defense after the yin and yang life and death array. The 6 paths wheel landed on the light film and shook violently. The wheel rotated and tried to break through the light film, but it failed. The face in the center of the 6 paths wheel looked at the All Heavens Hall, the faintly discernible foundation, and the wheel that also seemed to be turning non-stop. His expression turned solemn. The defensive seals of the main palace of Xianmen Tianzong, other than the vast power of the All Heavens, even the power of life and death has been melted into it? The 6 paths wheel was blocked by the All Heavens Hall. In the yin and yang life and death array, Shi Tianfang looked at Elder Bing's void-returning Dharma body and Wang Lin expressionlessly. Arcane energy surged out from his body and turned into 6 rays of light, condensing into a wheel that looked exactly like the 6 paths wheel above his head. 6 paths reincarnation Dao fruit. Shi Tianfang activated his Dao fruit and turned it into the 6 paths reincarnation. The surrounding time and space twisted, and everything was dragged into the samsara. Elder Bing and Wang Lin couldn't help but be pulled into the black hole that evolved the 6 paths reincarnation. The scene in front of them was strange and bizarre. Wisps of black air wrapped around their bodies. Chapter 857. In the All-Heaven Great Hall, in the small worlds that looked like light spheres, everyone was worried. Ever since they entered Xianmen Tianzong, the sect had never encountered such a critical moment. The mortals from Cloud Mirror City and the mystic Heaven Realm were quite panicked at this moment. They were afraid that no eggs would remain intact if the nest was destroyed. A few people even secretly complained that Xianmen Tianzong had implicated them, but they had completely forgotten how comfortable their lives were under the glory of the sect. The sect disciples, on the other hand, were optimistic about the situation. They believed that their elders would definitely be able to defeat the enemy, and that their sect would not lose its prestige. Not only the true disciples, but even the Foundation disciples were also very confident about the sect. Most of them sighed that their cultivation was too weak, and that they could not contribute their strength to protect the sect. Among the disciples of Fuentianyao, the fatty Yen Wei snorted and said, "In the future, if we meet the junior disciples of Shu Mountain, Reincarnation Sect, and Eastern Heaven Gate, we will beat them up every time we see them." There was only one true disciple under Luo Qingwu of the Light Dance Pavilion, but he was a slippery young man with a hint of arrogance. He was Han Yang, who had joined the sect during the third opening of the mountain gate. Hearing this, he curled his lips and said, "When we reach the nascent soul realm, we will also visit the sects that broke into the mountain gate today one by one." Hearing this, the others cheered and said, "That's right." Huang Jinting, who was in the desolate Sky Valley, shouted, "Count me in." Among the disciples of Qian Tian Palace, the dark and thin Ing Luozha grinned and said, "That's exactly what I wanted." Beside him, Yang Tai said silently, "I'm afraid the Patriarch, Master, Uncle Masters, and Uncle Masters won't give us this chance." On the side of Fun Tianyao, a handsome young man beside Yen Wei was Tang Jun, who had joined the sect at the same time as Han Yang. He smiled and said, "This will depend on the Patriarch and the others, but we should always be prepared. Otherwise, we can only watch from the sidelines next time." Yen Wei shushed him. "Don't jinx it. There's no next time." Within the crowd of Fan Lin residents, a girl seemed to be at the center. It was Li Xingfei. Her expression was calm and peaceful, as though she didn't care about what was happening outside. When the others looked at her, their hearts calmed down. Although Li Xingfei's expression was calm, her heart was not calm at all. She was in the spiritual sense pocket, so she didn't understand the situation in the outside world. At this moment, she was worried about whether her master Wang Lin would be able to return in time. In another spiritual sense pocket world, there was a middle-aged couple in the crowd, and the people around them almost subconsciously clustered around them. The middle-aged couple was Wang Lin's parents. The person next to them said in a trembling voice, I say, Uncle, Aunt, we won't be in danger, right?" The others also looked at Wang Lin's parents in shock and fear, hoping to get some accurate information from the couple, or at least some confidence. A crisis that had never happened before made them all flustered. Even though some of the younger people had already started cultivating Dao techniques, at this moment they were like ants on a hot pan, anxious and uneasy. Wang Lin's parents actually didn't know the exact situation. They only knew that enemies had come to attack the sect that their son was in. They didn't know how many enemies there were, how strong they were, or whether Xianmen Tianzong could defend against them. Wang Lin's parents had been taken care of for years, and their temperament had gradually changed from the villagers of the past. Although they were still simple and honest, at this moment they were able to calm their hearts. It was just that Xianmen Tianzong was so serious this time, and had all the related people withdraw and protect them in advance, afraid that something might go wrong. From this, it could be seen that the enemies were definitely not simple. At the very least, the current Xianmen Tianzong had to deal with them with all his strength, and had no time to take care of them. Wang Lin's father said in a low voice, "I believe that Lin and the others will definitely be able to repel the enemies. Now that we have been temporarily placed here, it is also to prevent the fish in the moat from being implicated. Otherwise, if the gods fight, with just a breath, all of us will go to see the King of Hell. When Lin and the others have repelled the enemies, everything will naturally clear up after the storm. I believe that moment is not far away." Wang Lin's mother's face also revealed a kind smile. "Everyone, relax. Since Lin's fellow sect members have placed us here in advance, they must have made thorough arrangements. We will not be in danger." Feeling the calmness of Wang Lin's parents, the hearts of the surrounding people gradually calmed down. Although their hearts were still beating non-stop, at least it did not form into panic. After calming the crowd, Wang Lin's parents looked at each other, and the old couple sighed. They could faintly see the hidden worry in each other's eyes. "I wonder how Lin and the others are doing." Wang Lin's mother closed her eyes and prayed, "May the heavens protect me, the celestial gate master protect me, please protect my son." At this moment, Wang Lin, who was in the black hole of the Six Paths reincarnation, felt his heart thumping. He looked down at the All Heavens Grand Palace, where the defensive mechanisms of the All Heaven's Grand Palace were blocking the invasion of the Six Paths Wheel. He now knew that all the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, all of his clansmen, were there. His father and his mother were there too. That was the last line of defense. Once it was breached, the flames of war would officially engulf the entire Jade Capital Mountain. And if Shi Tianfang, who stood before him, joined in the attack on the All Heaven's Grand Palace's defensive mechanisms and attacked together with the Six Paths Wheel, the consequences would be unpredictable. One by one, familiar faces flashed across his mind. The coldness in Wang Lin's eyes gradually faded, and the murderous intent disappeared. His eyes became calm and tranquil, as if he had returned to his true self. On the other side, Elder Bing was sucked into the Six Paths reincarnation, and he screamed in pain. His body was shrouded in black smoke that gushed out from his body. The black smoke was thick, twisted, ferocious, and resentful. Just a glance at it would make one feel as if they had fallen into the reincarnation hell. The black smoke turned into ferocious and mournful faces, twisted and sinister. Most of them were people dressed in the style of the northern militant royal court, but there were also many other people, including the monster race. One of the faces was supposed to be gentle and calm, but at this moment, it was extremely ferocious and terrifying. Elder Bing recognized him. He was the original owner of the Bronze Void Cauldron and Void Mountain River Cauldron, the Mountain River Celestial. 6,000 years ago, the Mountain River Celestial came to the Snow Mountain Lake to search for the karmic firewood, but because he leaked the secret, the Celestial Lake sect became greedy. After they seized the treasure, they suppressed the Mountain River Celestial in the eye of the sea. During the war between the two worlds more than 4,600 years ago, it was Elder Bing who led a few great sages of the monster clan to the eye of the sea and used them to kill the mountain and river supremacy. Then, the Celestial Pool sect used this opportunity to set up an ambush and killed those great sages of the monster clan there. As time passed, everything was gone with the wind, buried in the river of time. But today, Elder Bing finally saw the faces of these people again. He let out a despairing roar. This black smoke was a mysterious karma that originated from his body. At this moment, it was triggered by Shi Tianfang's spell and devoured him. The karma wrapped around him and dragged him into the reincarnation cycle. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he looked at the black bugs crawling all over Elder Bing's body. Each bug had a human face. These people were basically all people who had died because of Elder Bing. They seemed to have transformed into a venomous curse that lingered for a long time. Under the entanglement of the karma, Elder Bing's magic power was limited. Gradually, he was unable to resist the devouring of the Six Paths of reincarnation and was finally dragged into the black hole. The world of reincarnation spun, and Elder Bing's return to void Dharma body had already disappeared. Wang Lin stared at him and saw a shadow flash before he fell into the beast Dao that was filled with all kinds of birds, beasts, fishes, insects, and ferocious beasts. At this moment, wisps of sinister and terrifying black smoke also surged out from Wang Lin's body and wrapped around him. He had lived for a much shorter time than Elder Bing, but he had killed many people in his life, and his karma seemed to be on par with Elder Bing's. Wang Lin faced him calmly and activated the Yellow Spring's immortal body. His body suddenly disintegrated and turned into the Yellow Spring's true water. As soon as the black karma came into contact with the Yellow Spring's true water, it was immediately purified. Humph! Outside of the Six Paths of reincarnation, Shi Tianfang's cold snort sounded. In the next moment, red lotuses of flames suddenly lit up in front of Wang Lin. The red lotuses were deep and pure, and they looked like red crystals that were dancing around. The karmic fire of the red lotus. As soon as the fire shone on him, the karma on Wang Lin's body grew even stronger. On the other hand, the black karma was thrown into the karmic fire of the red lotus, causing the fire to burn even stronger. The two sides were mutually reinforcing each other. When the karmic fire of the red lotus pounced onto the yellow spring's true water, it immediately resisted the purification of the yellow spring's true water. On the other hand, the black worm-like karma took the opportunity to bypass the yellow spring's true water and wrap around Wang Lin's soul, yuanying, and dharma form of heaven and earth. Wang Lin's dharma form of heaven and earth swept his soul and yuanying into the underworld pearl. He allowed the endless karmic fire of the red lotus and the black karma to surround the surface of the underworld pearl and slide it into the depths of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It looked like it was about to follow in Elder Bing's footstep. The underworld pearl was sliding towards the blood-red path of Azura. At this moment, Wang Lin had already reconstructed his body in the underworld pearl. Silently, he sat in the Yellow Springs River and calmly looked at the karmic fire and karma that were invading the underworld pearl. He carefully savored the concept of the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the mysteries of karma. He compared them with the Taoist techniques that he had cultivated. At the same time, his mind was filled with the epiphany of Dharma that he had after reading the Buddhist scriptures and consulting Zen Master Dade. His life's experiences, karma, the cycle of life and death, the ups and downs of life, they all flowed through his mind like a river. Above Wang Lin's head, there was a silhouette of a young man. He looked about 15 or 16 years old, and it was his yuanying. Yuanying's silhouette opened his eyes, and the light in his eyes spread out. You reap what you sow. The ancestors plant the trees, and the descendants enjoy the shade. Wang Lin's corporeal body also opened his eyes, and the light flashed. Above his Dharma form of heaven and earth was Emperor Yan's hall. Above Emperor Yan's hall, there were 3 levels of light and shadow illusions that looked like a flight of stairs. They were like pagodas. The 3 levels of light and shadow illusions were 3 worlds, and there were 3 demon gates that were connected. At this moment, the 4th demon gate suddenly opened. The world inside was empty, and there was only a dot of light. Then, a line extended from the dot of light, and it stopped at another dot of light. Then, a line continued to extend from this dot of light, and it stopped at the next dot of light. Wang Lin crushed a porcelain bottle, held the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill in his hand, and sent it into his mouth. Chapter 858. Under the pressure of his family facing danger and the calamity of his sect, Wang Lin tested the 6 paths of reincarnation with his own body and comprehended the true meaning of the Grand Tao. He felt the fog in front of him gradually dissipate, leaving only the last wisp. Wang Lin's mind was calm and he was not anxious. To break through this Tao, there is only one word: defy. The 4th demonic gate closed with a bang. All the scenes in the 4th world started to reverse. The light that continued retreated from the final destination to the previous starting point, then back to the previous starting point, and so on until it returned to the starting point. Walking in the world, when one makes a choice, one walks on a path and reaches an end. The starting point is the cause, and the end point is the effect. There is a cause and there is an effect. Once something starts, it will continue on its path, and when it stops, there will be a result. The past created the future, and the result of the future could be traced back to the cause of the past. The last art of Wang Lin's 4 symbols realm art, the Karma realm. After coming into contact with this principle, the last wisp of fog in front of Wang Lin completely dissipated. The gate of the primordial spirit in his sea of consciousness had never been clearer. Scenes flashed through Wang Lin's mind. They were distant yet clear. When he was young, his talent was not outstanding and he could not pass the entrance exam of the Hengyu sect. He obtained the underworld pearl and became a disciple of his master, Lin Feng. He had always cultivated the slowest among his fellow disciples. Fortunately, his master never abandoned him and patiently guided him. He collected a lot of resources and finally managed to soar into the sky. When he reached core formation, He returned to his hometown and lived a simple life, enjoying the happiness of his family with his parents. When the cultivators of the underworld hall attacked, he fought to the death to protect his family. He was trapped in the void battlefield and survived for 100 years. After suffering came happiness. He became the first disciple of his master to reach nascent soul and shocked the world. Everything turned into three thoughts: family, master, fellow disciples. In the end, these three thoughts converged into the purest thought and let out a deafening cry. Primordial Spirit! Primordial Spirit! Primordial Spirit! The powerful will that was condensed to the extreme and finally sublimated pushed Wang Lin toward the gate of the primordial spirit. He had to prove his Tao and become an essence soul, protect his family, protect the glory of his sect, and protect his fellow disciples. This was a belief that he had never said aloud. It was the hottest temperature and the brightest flame in his cold and lonely heart. Just like his past life, it had always wandered between black and white and colorful, silent, despairing, pessimistic, but there was always hope. When the path to immortality was hopeless and his future was bleak, he met his benefactor. When cultivation was slow and every step was difficult, there was a master who did not abandon him. There were people from the same sect who treated him as equals. They did not look down on him or pity him. They went through thick and thin together. A strong enemy was attacking, and his clansmen and parents were in danger. He fought with his life on the line. Although he was trapped in the void, most of his relatives were still safe. He stood firm in every blow, rose high in every challenge, and was reborn in every devastation. Those with a strong heart would not cry, beg for mercy, compromise, or give up. They would turn the impossible into the possible, turn the rotten into the magical, and stand tall forever. In order to prevent the world in his heart from turning black and white, even if he sank into the darkness, even if he burned alone in the darkness, he was willing to endure it. Wang Lin felt like his entire body was aflame in the darkness, burning fiercely. It seemed like only a moment had passed, but it also seemed like a long time had passed. The door in front of him suddenly opened. His Yuanying turned into a stream of light and rushed into the Dharma form. The huge Dharma form completely merged with Yuanying and rushed into the open door together. After passing through the void door, Wang Lin's Dharma form suddenly collapsed, turning into talisman seeds. They received the endless great Tao laws of heaven and earth to nourish and purify them. They grew rapidly and then suddenly turned into a huge Tai Chi diagram that covered the sky. On this Tai Chi diagram, there were layers of light and shadows flashing. At the end of the black and yellow road, a dark river flowed silently. Above the river, there was an ancient black stone bridge. On the other side of the black stone bridge, there was a hall that was as large as a city. In that vast, pitch-black hall, there seemed to be something else. But at this moment, it was only an illusory shadow, flashing and disappearing. The layers of light and shadows turned into a huge netherworld, and the huge Tai Chi diagram contained this side of the world. A low and calm song sounded from the netherworld Tai Chi diagram. In the Xianmen, the inverse immortal spirit, the Tao uses killing to prove love. When the world is in trouble, it is like a spring. Beyond redemption, I walk alone. In the song, the netherworld Tai Chi diagram turned, sweeping up the road to the underworld, the river of forgetfulness, the bridge of helplessness, and Emperor Yan's hall. It rushed out of the underworld pearl, sweeping up the underworld pearl and the Xiantian god sealing banner. In the next moment, the netherworld Tai Chi diagram transformed back into Wang Lin's appearance. His white hair floated, and the Tai Chi diagram on his forehead flashed. The fourth door above his head opened, revealing the mystique of the world of karma. The door opened for an instant and then it closed with a bang. The karma that was like thousands of twisted and hideous black worms that were wrapping around him suddenly jumped in unison and began to shatter inch by inch. It was not that Wang Lin had completely cleared his own karma, but that he now understood the principle of karma, and would not easily trigger his own karma for the outside world. At the same time, the surging yellow spring's true water turned into a long river, isolating the karma red lotuses. The red lotuses bloomed on the yellow river, and the two sides reached a miraculous balance. The reincarnation sex power of samsara is unique. In the future, when I cultivate the Tao, I can use it as a reference. Wang Lin's expression was calm. With a light tap of his foot, he had already jumped out of the 6 paths of samsara. The third direct disciple of the Celestial Gates sect master, Lin Feng, was Wang Lin. Even Jia Luoshi, Xiao Dongtian and the others at the side, when they saw this scene and then looked at Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao, their hearts sank. Is it because we attacked the mountain today, the pressure instead pushed them to break through the bottleneck, or is there another reason? Shi Tianfang used the 6 paths of samsara to devour Wang Lin and Elder Ice. Seeing that Elder Ice was successfully devoured by the power of samsara, a low Tao song sounded, and in the next moment, Wang Lin had already escaped from the 6 paths of samsara. Wang Lin's expression was cold and emotionless. He looked at Shi Tianfang and paused for a moment. The huge bridge of helplessness suddenly appeared, lifted him up and rushed towards Shi Tianfang. Shi Tianfang was slightly startled, and he frowned. He pointed a finger at Wang Lin, and with his arcane energy, all things were born. The stubborn stone nodded, and the heaven and earth opened and closed. But after the creation came the destruction. This was the secret skill of the reincarnation sect, the great nirvana finger. The bridge of helplessness under Wang Lin's feet rose up, and the yellow spring true water surged from the river of forgetfulness and poured into the bridge of helplessness. The ancient and desolate air on the black stone bridge became even heavier, and a powerful intent realm that could shock even the gods and ghosts alike appeared. The huge bridge passed through the endless void, turned into a black line, and clashed with Shi Tianfang's finger. In the midst of the explosion, the bridge of helplessness carried Wang Lin backward, and Shi Tianfang was also pushed back by the impact. The seriousness in Shi Tianfang's eyes became more and more intense. He stared at Wang Lin and thought, sure enough, his Taoist techniques and my reincarnation sect's inheritance are similar. They seem to be on the same path, but at the same time, they have the effect of restraining my reincarnation sect's inheritance. The same kind of intent realm could not be cultivated by just one Tao art. Xianmen Tianzong's Great Sun Brilliant Heaven Scripture and the Demon Realm's Golden Crow Clan's True Sun Fire art could both be cultivated and controlled the True Sun Fire. Different Tao arts had different understandings of the same kind of intent realm. Naturally, there would be some differences. However, the great Taos came from the same source. When Shi Tianfang saw Xiao Yan and Shi Tianhao's performance, he was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Feng's direct disciples to have such powerful magical powers. Their nascent divinities could even fight against Tao-fusing experts like Shi Tianfang and Xiao Dongtian. Now that he saw Wang Lin again, he immediately knew that although Wang Lin's nascent divinity had just formed, he was still a formidable opponent. Arcane energy surged around Shi Tianfang's body as he once again manifested the 6 paths reincarnation Tao fruit. Among the 6 grids on the wheel, the one that represented the Tao of mortal shone brightly, and the carvings on it kept changing, showing the changes of the mortal world. Balls of colorful light spread out, trying to engulf Wang Lin. Shi Tianfang was experienced in fights of magical powers. When he saw Wang Lin's Tao art, he knew that the Tao arts of Celestial Tao and Azura Tao were useless against him. The Hungry Ghost Tao and Hell Tao were even more useless. But the Mortal Tao and Animal Tao were worth a try. The colorful light spread out, as if it had turned into the mortal world, enveloping Wang Lin. The scene that appeared in front of him was the small mountain village where he lived when he was young. Although it was barren, it still had some farmland. Wang Lin's eyes were calm and peaceful. Standing on the bridge of helplessness, he looked like an ordinary mortal. The magical power and aura around him were completely restrained. Walking in the mortal world, he returned to his natural state, perfectly merging with the mortal world. He lingered but didn't lose himself, and his eyes were always clear. Seeing this, Shi Tianfang frowned. He immediately knew that the mortal world Tao was useless against Wang Lin. The 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit revolved, the purple grid representing the animal Tao lit up, wanting to suck Wang Lin inside. All kinds of demonic beasts and beasts filled the world, pouncing at Wang Lin again. Wang Lin was still walking slowly. His expression and temperament didn't change at all. He still looked like an ordinary mortal. But around him, the deathly stillness and death qi had already spread out, corroding the surrounding space and turning it into the Yellow Springs world. The dusky Yellow Springs world spread out and soon came into contact with the animal Tao world created by Shi Tianfang. All kinds of demonic beasts that were trapped in the Yellow Springs world turned into white bones, leaving only their skeletons. They had lost their lives. Half of the animal Tao world was devoured by the Yellow Springs world. For a moment the world was divided into two. One was the animal Tao world, and the other was the Yellow Springs underworld. In the past, when Wang Lin used the Yellow Springs annihilation realm, he would become cold and murderous, breaking away from his usual calm and peaceful appearance. But now, when Wang Lin used the Yellow Springs annihilation realm, his temperament didn't change at all. He slowly walked out from the Yellow Springs underworld. He didn't look scary or majestic, instead, he looked like a sightseeing tourist. But the more he looked like this, the more he looked like the owner of this world, like the Lord of Hell who controlled the cycle of life and death. His aura made Shi Tianfang frown. The 6 paths of reincarnation continued to spin. The strange and mysterious power of reincarnation passed through the Yellow Springs annihilation realm and Wang Lin's arcane energy, trying to draw out the karma in his body. Wang Lin's expression was calm. He changed his form and turned into the netherworld Tai Chi art, casting the karma world. After the 4th demon gate was opened, it suddenly closed. Karma reversed, causing his karma to be unaffected by Shi Tianfang's 6 paths of reincarnation. At the same time, the Yellow Springs world manifested by Wang Lin's power of nirvanic destruction suddenly trembled, then it rapidly collapsed and shrunk towards the center. It was like the death of the stars, the mass of everything collapsed towards the center and was destroyed. The hellish Yellow Springs scene disappeared, condensing into a small black ball, silently hovering above the netherworld Tai Chi art. Chapter 859. Although the netherworld realm had disappeared, the black ball exuded a terrifying aura of nirvanic destruction. The pinnacle of the netherworld realm, unparalleled destruction. This was Wang Lin pushing the power of his Yellow Springs death realm to the limit. In an instant, he burned everything, gathered all his power, and released it all at once. At this moment, he used all his power to form the terrifying power of nirvanic extermination. On the Hades Taiji diagram, there was a city-like, majestic black palace. It was Emperor Yan's hall. The small black ball merged with Emperor Yan's hall, and the aura of Emperor Yan's hall suddenly became even more gloomy and heavy. Its color also became darker, without a hint of luster. The space around Emperor Yan's hall twisted, as though it was about to be sucked into the Black Palace. The gates to the ancient and modern world opened, and Emperor Yan's hall fell into it. The gates closed, and the next moment, the gates opened again. Emperor Yan's hall was already before Shi Tianfang, without any delay. It had truly arrived in an instant. Feeling the power of unparalleled destruction, Shi Tianfang took a deep breath and clasped his palms together, activating all his spiritual power. The 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit shook violently, as though it was about to shatter. Pillars of black smoke rose into the sky, crisscrossing in the world of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Each pillar of black smoke seemed to add a tear to the world. The 6 paths of reincarnation seemed to be on the verge of collapse. In the immortal realm, those who were originally high and mighty became filthy, their hair withered, and their bodies stinking. In the human realm, thousands of living beings cried and wailed, as though they were facing the end of the world. In the Azura realm, the figures fighting each other became even crazier, more bloodthirsty, and more savage. In the beast realm, the snakes, insects, rats, and ants stirred. Many strange beasts howled, and it was also a scene of the end of the world. In the hungry ghost realm, the billions of ghosts became even more vicious, their faces twisted in pain. Their venomous auras made one feel suffocated and cold. In the hell realm, magma flowed everywhere, but there was a sense of joy, as though they were happy to see the destruction. The black cracks grew denser and denser, causing the 6 paths of reincarnation world to finally shatter completely. A powerful force that could destroy the heavens and earth spread in all directions. It was like the true end of the world. This destructive power met with Wang Lin's equally terrifying Emperor Yan's Hall. The two collided and interfered with the real world, causing the void to distort. Even the yin and yang life and death design was affected. At the same time that the destructive power held back Emperor Yan's Hall, 6 more auras were born from the destruction. They circled around, as though they were building a new world of the 6 paths of reincarnation. After the destruction, the new power was even more majestic. The supreme Dharma spell of the reincarnation sect, the destruction of the 6 paths and the reconstruction of reincarnation. Emperor Yan's Hall, which had been reinforced by the unparalleled destructive power, also exploded with tremendous power. It directly blew up the 6th Daos reincarnation realm that was about to be born. But Emperor Yan's Hall also began to crumble and dissipate into the void. But soon after, white light surged on the Taiji diagram formed by Wang Lin's soul. Almost in an instant, the black nirvana chi that Wang Lin had exhausted with all his might appeared again, turning into the dark void of the netherworld world. Then, the void collapsed and condensed into a terrifying black sphere. The extreme of the Yellow Springs death realm, reversal, extreme Tao rebirth. Shi Tianfang frowned as he watched the scene unfold before him. In theory, when a cultivator reached the primordial spirit realm, they would be one with the heavens and the earth. All the yuan qi of heaven and earth could be converted into their own spiritual power. Therefore, primordial spirit realm cultivators would not face the problem of spiritual power exhaustion, unless an even stronger cultivator used a powerful mystique to temporarily cut off the connection between the primordial spirit realm cultivator and the world. But for primordial spirit realm cultivators, due to the difference in their cultivation of Tao techniques, mystiques, and spiritual power, the efficiency and frequency of conversion of the yuan qi of heaven and earth would definitely be different. It was like 2 containers with almost endless capacity, opening a hole to pour water. The size of the hole would directly affect how much water could be poured out in the same amount of time. Similarly, in a certain space, when the water that originally belonged to that part of the space was poured out, water from other places would naturally be replenished, but the speed of replenishment might not necessarily be able to keep up with the speed of pouring. Even after Wang Lin reached the primordial spirit realm, he pushed the power of his Yellow Springs death realm to the extreme and performed the supreme art of destruction, but he still mobilized the greatest power in his body in an instant. This kind of spiritual power was strong, but the speed of spiritual power consumption was equally shocking. Even if Wang Lin could convert the yuan qi of heaven and earth into his own spiritual power, the speed of consumption still exceeded the speed of replenishment. It was not that the replenishment speed was too slow. After Wang Lin reached the primordial spirit realm, he could communicate with the heavens and the earth, and the majestic yuan qi would all be converted into his own spiritual power. It was just that the speed of consumption was too fast. Especially according to Shi Tianfang's observation, Wang Lin's supreme art of destruction vaguely had some traces of the Tao destruction technique. Before he reached the primordial spirit realm, performing this technique not only required him to burn up all his power, but even his spirit would be damaged in order to have such powerful destructive power. And after he reached the primordial spirit realm, performing this technique would also faintly damage his own primordial spirit incarnation. Once a cultivator's primordial spirit incarnation was damaged, it would also cause the primordial spirit's integration with the heavens and the earth to no longer be perfect. At this time, it would be impossible to mobilize the yuan qi of heaven and earth to repair the body. The most obvious example in this regard was Wang Lin's senior brother, Xiao Yan, who reached the primordial spirit realm one step ahead of him. Several of Xiao Yan's spiritual powers consumed a lot of spiritual power. After he reached the primordial spirit realm, this shortcoming was obviously improved, and the four-color fiery lotus was at his fingertip. But not to mention that he had not completely mastered the five-color fiery lotus. Even if he had perfected it, he could only attack once in the primordial spirit incarnation realm. This was because the five-color fiery lotus was extremely powerful. While it looked down on the enemy, it would also damage his own primordial spirit, causing a gap in the integration of the heavens and the earth to be unable to effectively mobilize the yuan qi of heaven and earth to replenish his spiritual power. Therefore, Shi Tianfang originally thought that as long as he blocked this fatal blow from Wang Lin, he could slowly deal with him later. Unexpectedly, Wang Lin used the power of extreme rebirth, not only to repair the damage to his primordial spirit, but also to restore his power to its peak in an unimaginably short time. Shi Tianfang waved his hand, and the red lotus hellfire flew towards Wang Lin, but a dark yellow pearl rose above Wang Lin's head. The dark yellow light was like a long river, flowing in the void, isolating the red lotuses formed by the hellfire, making them unable to get close to Wang Lin. Shi Tianfang frowned. It really is the underworld pearl of the underworld demon sect. The underworld pearl, once the ultimate treasure of the super demon sect underworld demon sect, had been damaged for tens of thousands of years. At this moment it was finally repaired, giving birth to the treasure's primordial spirit and glowing again. Although it was still a distance away from its peak, there was still hope for it. At this moment it was even more extraordinary. Looking at the sky above the Hades Taiji diagram formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit, the shadow of Emperor Yan's hall and the small black ball merged again, emitting an incomparably ferocious aura. Shi Tianfang frowned and growled, 6 das. The 6 das wheel, which was locked in a stalemate with the All Heavens Hall's defensive seals, heard this, and the face in the center of the wheel turned gloomy. The personal disciple of the master of Xianmen is indeed extraordinary. The 6 das wheel suddenly spun, and suddenly abandoned the All Heavens Hall's defensive seals, no longer attacking. Instead, it flew into the air and spun continuously, turning into a black hole. The black hole met with Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hall, which was strengthened by the art of destruction. The collision between the two was even more intense than the previous battle between Shi Tianfang and Wang Lin. The black hole and Emperor Yan's hall shattered at the same time. The strange power of reincarnation and the terrifying aura of nirvanic extermination swept across the battlefield, forcing the others who were fighting to retreat. A reincarnation sex-hungry ghost realm cultivator retreated a little too slowly, and half of his body was swept away by the aura of nirvanic extermination. Fortunately, he used the ghost substitution art and used the ghost he had refined to die in his place at the critical moment. That was how he managed to escape with his life. He looked at the battlefield with lingering fear. Apart from Xianli, Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, Jie Luoshi, Xiao Dongtian, Xian Tianin, and Shi Tianfang, the others retreated when they saw his terrible condition. Even the heavily injured twin poles Sky Peak, Zhang and Rui, Luo Qingwu, and Wu Tong had to be careful. The black hole shattered, and the 6 das wheel was revealed again. On the other side, the Hades Taiji diagram, formed by Wang Lin's primordial spirit, flashed with white light again. The damage and spiritual power that his primordial spirit had suffered were instantly recovered. At the same time, the supreme destruction art was cast for the third time, and the black ball was formed again. The human face in the center of the 6-daos wheel looked extremely serious. Although there must be a limit, and it can't be an infinite cycle, it's really troublesome to do it again and again. The wheel spun faster and faster, and it tightly wrapped around Wang Lin, preventing Wang Lin from attacking Shi Tianfang. At this moment, Shi Tianfang did not join forces with the 6-daos wheel to attack Wang Lin. Instead, he descended toward Yujing Mountain. Just now, when he and Wang Lin were fighting with all their might, he vaguely felt as if someone was secretly watching them from the shadows. This feeling made him very uncomfortable, so he immediately decided to take down Yujing Mountain first to avoid any trouble. The All Heaven's Great Palace's defensive seals protected Yujing Mountain. Shi Tianfang's eyes were calm, and he waved his hand and threw out a talisman. The talisman emitted a strong light, and in the light, a haggard old man with a tall hat and ancient clothes appeared. His expression was solemn and cold, and in his eyes, there were 2 6-daos wheel worlds that kept spinning. The Taoist opened his hands, and like a reincarnated black hole, he twisted the light film formed by the All Heaven's Great Palace's defensive seals. This person was the reincarnation Taoist, the founder of the reincarnation sect, a powerful expert who had achieved Tao since ancient times. This talisman was left behind by the reincarnation Taoist, and it could actually manifest his powerful spiritual power in a short period of time. Under the reincarnation Taoist's twisting, the light film did not break, but a small crack was torn. The crack only existed for a moment before it closed again. But in this moment, Shi Tianfang had already taken the opportunity to pass through the light film and land on Yujing Mountain. Shi Tianfang stepped on the peak of Yujing Mountain, and when he felt the solid ground beneath his feet, his usually calm mind became a little excited. Finally! Chapter 860. Seeing Shi Tianfang step onto the peak of Yujing Mountain, Li Yuanfang, who was sitting on the mysterious sky treasure tree, frowned. He held a jade talisman in his hand and was about to crush it. This was Zhu Yi's last resort before he went into seclusion. If Li Yuanfang crushed the jade talisman, he would come out of seclusion in advance. Shi Tianfang looked up at Li Yuanfang. With just a glance, Li Yuanfang felt that his thoughts seemed to stop, and his soul and body were about to be separated. Fortunately, Li Yuanfang's mind and will were completely in sync with the yin and yang life and death formation. As the formation changed, it helped him resolve Shi Tianfang's divine sense. Otherwise, if Shi Tianfang, who was in the Tao integration realm, wanted to kill him, who had not formed his nascent soul, he would die with just a glance. He didn't even need to look. Without the protection of the yin and yang life and death formation, a living person would immediately become a dead person. However, when Li Yuanfang was directly attacked by Shi Tianfang, the yin and yang life and death formation became even more sluggish. Shi Tianfang glanced at Li Yuanfang. After failing to kill him immediately, he estimated how long it would take to completely break the yin and yang life and death formation. He shook his head slightly and retracted his gaze, preparing to refine Yujing Mountain first. At this moment, in the distant sky of the Kunlun mountain range, an extremely fast-flowing light broke through the layers of void and arrived outside the yin and yang life and death formation in an instant. It was a light shadow. The shape of a long sword didn't have a physical body. It was just an outline outlined by light, which revealed an elusive, erratic, and powerful concept of power. It was like a fleeting flowing light. It was so short that it flashed by in a hurry. It was difficult to grasp and capture. Inside the long sword, countless scenes changed. In the blink of an eye, it changed 60 times. It turned out to be Flowing Light Swordsman of the Celeritas Sword Sect, who directly manifested his Dharma form of Void Return. Flowing Light Swordsman came outside the formation without any obstruction. Li Yuanfang directly opened the formation and let him in, not worried at all that he would lead a wolf into the house. Indeed, Swordsman Lightflow didn't have any ill intentions. He traveled through the endless void and rushed to the front lines. After he entered the formation, he faced off against the East Heaven Gate's great elder, Tao Lord Dongming, who was fighting with the sky peak of the twin poles. The two poles' celestial peaks immediately left the formation and landed on Shi Tianfang, who was on Jade Capital Mountain. Shi Tianfang glanced at venerated swordsman Lightstream. I can't believe they still let one go. Jie Luoshi, who was fighting with Xianli, was expressionless. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he stared at Shi Tianhao. Originally, it should have been Sword Venerate Shaozi who went to stop Sword Venerate Streamlight. But unexpectedly, Sword Venerate Shaozi was severely injured by Shi Tianhao. Xiao Yan took a deep breath and looked at Sword Venerate Flowing Light. Senior, I thank you for your timely help. After exchanging a blow with Tao Lord Dongming, Sword Venerate Flowing Light's voice came out. I owe you a lot in the past. If your sect needs it, I should help. You don't have to thank me. Instead, I want to congratulate you for reaching the Essence Soul Realm. The immortal divine light of the heavenly way rose above Shi Tianfang's head and withstood the attack of the twin poles' celestial peak. His expression didn't change at all. If the Longevity Heavenly Spear or the 9 Thunder Drum were here, they might be able to play a role. But you, Flowing Light, are of no help here. Although there is a fish that escaped the net, this is the only one. You don't have to think about other reinforcements. At this moment, on the way from the Purple Cloud Peak of the Thunder Mountain Range to Kunlun Mountain of the Purple Cloud Path, 2 thunderbolts flew through the void and suddenly stopped in the void. The thunderbolts stopped and 2 figures appeared. One was the current sect master of the Purple Cloud Path, Tao Master Thundercloud, and the other was Tao Master Blue Thunder. At this moment, Tao Master Blue Thunder had finally broken through and reached the Void Return Realm. However, at this moment, the 2 brothers' faces were gloomy. They looked at the countless flowing lights in the void in front of them, forming a huge magic array, changing time and space and covering this part of the world. On the distant horizon, there were faint roars of violent beasts that pierced through the clouds. More than one of them revealed the powerful aura of the demon clan's immortal monster soul realm. In the air, 2 figures were faintly discernible. One was an ordinary-looking old man with a medium build, like an old man from the countryside. The other was hidden in a black robe and his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. But Tao Master Thundercloud and Tao Master Blue Thunder immediately recognized them and frowned even more. Wu Shusen, the sect master of the Animal Path of the Reincarnation Sect, and Dark Lord, the sect master of the Hell Path. Dark Lord didn't say anything, but Wu Shusen smiled slightly. If the 9 Thunder Drum doesn't come out, you too can forget about passing through here. In fact, even if the 9 Thunder Drum wants to surpass me and Dark Lord, it's not something that can be done in a short period of time. Let's go all out. Of course, the 2 of us are no match for the 9 Thunder Drum, but we don't intend to fight to the death with you. We just want to delay you here for a while. It won't be long before our sect master will naturally solve the problem. It just so happens that Dark Lord and I are good at delaying others. Tao Master Thundercloud, you can ask the 9 Thunder Drum to support us. At worst, I'll send all the spirit beasts I've raised over the years to it to test its power. At the same time, in the Beijiang, on the vast grassland, 2 people stood alone. They faced the south where Kunlun Mountain was located, obviously preparing to leave. Of these 2 people, one was a tall and thin old man who looked very old and weak. The other was a young man in a black robe, carrying a huge black iron spear on his back. His powerful spiritual power fluctuations were even more terrifying than the tall and thin old man beside him. The old man was the high priest of the Northern Militant Royal Court, a powerhouse of the Void Return realm who specialized in soul technique. After the Northern Militant Royal Court learned of the changes in Xianmen Tianzong and Yujing Mountain being besieged, the great Chanyu of the Northern Militant Royal Court, the high priest, and the others made the decision to help after a short discussion. But at this moment they had no choice but to stop in their tracks. On the seemingly calm grassland in front of them, there were two people standing in front of them. The person on the left was tall and burly, with a threatening spirit. Standing there, he was like a giant sword that was about to break the world, extremely domineering and fierce. The person on the right was dressed in linen clothes, barefooted, and there was not a trace of sword intent or spiritual power around him. He stood there ordinary, like a mortal in the secular world. The master of the 6 meridian swords of Shu Mountain, Sword Master Little Shang and Sword Master Li Xiong. The black-robed young man beside the high priest was expressionless. "With just the two of you in the Void Return realm, you want to stop me?" As he said this, the black iron spear on his back was already in his hand. A violent and grand power spread out, stirring up the world around him and beginning to shatter. The Longevity Heavenly Spear was the treasure of the Northern Militant Royal Court, a Mahayana-grade magic treasure. In reality, it was the #1 powerhouse of the Northern Militant Royal Court, but it had always been in the king's tent and did not go out easily. This time, considering that there were many powerhouses in the Xian Extermination Coalition army, the great Chanyu of the Northern Militant Royal Court specially invited the Longevity Heavenly Spear and the High Priest to help Yujing Mountain, while he himself, who was in the Void Return realm, stayed in the king's tent. This black-robed young man was naturally the Longevity Heavenly Spear's magic treasure. Sword Master Little Shang smiled. "I thought that only the great Chanyu and the High Priest would come out, but I didn't expect the Northern Militant Royal Court to be so honest, even sending out the Longevity Heavenly Spear." Longevity Heavenly Spear, you are a Mahayana-grade magic treasure, which is indeed extraordinary, but we now have the Little Shang and Li Xiong swords in our hands. Other Void Return realm cultivators are afraid of you, but we, the sword cultivators of Shu Mountain, are not. The Little Shang sword and Li Xiong sword can basically be said to be the two sword skills with the strongest pure attack power among the 6 meridian swords of Shu Mountain. Sword Master Little Shang said, "Is your Northern Militant Royal Court willing to fight to the death with my Shu Mountain in order to help Xianmen Tianzong?" Sword Master Li Xiong looked at the Longevity Heavenly Spear, his expression calm and indifferent as he said, "This time Xianmen Tianzong will definitely pay the price for their previous insolence. I advise the two of you to return now, otherwise if we fight, the final result will not look good on everyone's face." In the main hall of the Southern Wilderness Sword Sect, Sword Master of the Great Wilderness stood with his hands behind his back, his expression serious as he looked at the distant horizon outside the mountain. Within the crimson-red burning clouds, there was a faint flash of sword light. "De Huang, these years you have been too close to Xianmen Tianzong. Now obediently stay here and don't move. After this maybe Shu Mountain will still be able to tolerate you." The one who came here to block the door was the sect master of the Blaze Sword Sect, Sword Master of the Blaze. At the same time, outside the Thunderbolt Sword Sect, in the sky above the Thunderbolt Sword Sect, there was actually an ocean hanging upside down. It was vast and boundless, enveloping the earth. The seawater did not fall, but waves splashed everywhere, the tides rising and falling. The sect master of the Songhai Sword Sect, Sword Master of the Vast Sea, had an indifferent expression. He stepped on the surface of the sea, as if he was standing upside down in the air, but he was happy and content. He looked at the Thunderbolt Sword Sect below, blocking the Sword Master of the Thunderbolt at the sect gate. Sword Master of the Vast Sea smiled and said, "Thunderbolt, it's not the first time we've fought, neither of us can do anything to the other. Let's not waste our energy. It's not like we need to fight to the death for Xianmen Tianzong. Let's just wait here for the dust to settle. Emperor Zhou's side has also already sent troops to the Qin dynasty, suppressing Emperor Qin's Stonefeather to the point where he can't move. At this moment, on the border of the Great Zhou dynasty and the Great Qin dynasty, there was a large number of experts facing off. On the side of the Great Zhou dynasty, there were two vast auras that were like real worlds of creation. On the side of the Great Qin dynasty, there was a boundless radiance with no end in sight, standing at the border like a city wall. Emperor Qin Stonefeather, the Great Qin monarch Rosen Shi Zongmao, and the southern bright monarch Shi Zongtong, the three Dao integration experts, stood on the immortal dragon city together, looking across with solemn expressions. They knew that Emperor Zhou Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu's intention was to keep them from assisting the Kunlun Mountains' Xianmen Tianzong. However, if they really had the opportunity to set foot on the Great Qin dynasty's territory, Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu would definitely be more than happy to do so. The southern bright monarch Shi Zongtong looked at Stonefeather. Your Majesty, why don't we just pull back and help Xianmen Tianzong overcome this crisis first? In the future, we'll deal with the Great Zhou dynasty together with Xianmen Tianzong. No matter how much they swallow today, they'll spit it out in the future. The Rosen monarch Shi Zongmao shook his head and said, Our relationship with Xianmen Tianzong is that of an ally, not a sect leader and a vassal state. How can we abandon our territory for others? After all, we've already held back the Great Zhou dynasty's two creation-grade magic treasures here. We're even stronger than the forces that are actually attacking the mountain. Emperor Qin Stonefeather didn't say anything. His gaze was as calm as still water. His gaze pierced through the void and landed on the Grand Imperial Palace, meeting Emperor Zhou Liangpan's gaze. Liangpan's expression was also calm. He tilted his head slightly and asked, How is Minister Xiao's family doing? A primordial soul cultivator beside him answered, Sect Master Xiao is still biding his time and waiting for an opportunity. Xianmen Tianzong's Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, and Wang Lin all reached the primordial soul realm one after another. This is somewhat unexpected, and he doesn't have enough confidence. Thus, he can only observe for now. However, the reincarnation sect's Shi Tianfang has the upper hand. Chapter 861. From Xiao Dongtian's point of view, Shi Tianfang, who had the upper hand, was not having an easy time either. He was the first to ascend Yujing Mountain, which made him the target of everyone. Other than the twin sky peaks, Xianli, Xiao Yan, and Shi Tianhao were all hurriedly pushing back their opponents and slashing down with their swords, thunder, and fire. Even Jia Luoshi, Xiao Dongtian, and Xian Tianin, who were fighting with them, slowed down and allowed Xianmen Tianzong and the others to intercept Shi Tianfang. Apart from the 6 paths of reincarnation sect and the reincarnation sect cultivators who were focused on holding back Wang Lin and the others, Jia Luoshi and Xiao Dongtian were also unwilling to let Shi Tianfang get ahead of them. At the same time, Yang Qing changed the All-Heaven Great Palace's defensive seals again to drive Shi Tianfang out. A cold light flashed in Shi Tianfang's eyes. He cast out another talisman, which manifested Taoist Reincarnation's supreme power. Taoist Reincarnation's figure emerged in the light and blocked all the attacks from the twin sky peaks and Shi Tianfang. But at this moment, a crack appeared in the sky outside Yujing Mountain, and gray fog gushed out from it. Several figures wrapped in gray fog rushed into the yin and yang life and death array. Li Yuanfang was slightly shocked. His mind was connected to the array, and he immediately found that the opponents were very strong. The person in the lead was a tall middle-aged man with a beard on his chin. His eyes were bright and full of expression, but if one looked closely, one would discover that the depths of his eyes were pitch black like an abyss. He was the master of the Nether Palace, Su Anda. But what caught everyone's attention even more was that in Su Anda's palm was an open scroll. The scroll was emitting a resplendent brilliance, and within the brilliance, there were layers of black shadows flashing, as if it contained many independent worlds. Every single independent world contained a profound concept of power. Many independent worlds overlapped with each other, but they didn't fuse together. Instead, they formed a wondrous resonance, causing the resplendent power to become even more shocking. The scroll clearly contained the aura of the creation realm, similar to the creation realm magic treasures like the immortal Dragon City and the Grand Imperial Palace. But it was still not perfect. The Book of Life and Death was only half a step away from attaining the creation realm, as if it could break through the final bottleneck at any time. It was originally a magic treasure refined by the ancient underworld emperor in the past. He wanted to use the Book of Life and Death to dominate the world of life and death and determine the fate of all living beings in the world. However, the underworld emperor was deposed and overthrown before this treasure was completely refined. The Book of Life and Death was also greatly damaged in the Great Battle back then. Otherwise, it would have become the creation long ago. Otherwise, it would have been of the creation realm. Otherwise, it would have been creation realm. Su Anda sighed. He held the Book of Life and Death in one hand and flipped the mysterious scroll with the other. The dazzling brilliance on the scroll suddenly turned into a huge beam of light and shot out. However, his target was not Xianmen Tianzong or Yujing Mountain, but Six Paths Luan, who was fighting with Wang Lin. As soon as the Book of Life and Death appeared, Six Paths Wheel felt a wave of discomfort. If it were any other time, he would still be able to dodge it, but right now, he was engaged in a battle with Wang Lin. The sudden sneak attack from the Book of Life and Death caused him to be enveloped by the huge light pillar. The man in the center of the wheel was shocked and terrified, because he clearly felt that he was being assimilated by that resplendent pillar of light. Although there were many differences, they seemed to originate from the same source. An even more powerful force was continuously pulling it toward the Book of Life and Death. The Six Paths Wheel let out a shrill whistle and spun at an unprecedented speed. His strength was pushed to the extreme, turning into a black hole of the Six Paths reincarnation, resisting the suction force from the Book of Life and Death and trying to escape from the tiger's mouth. But the Book of Life and Death's power was already stronger than his, and Su Anda's hands moved quickly, casting out a black ray that merged with the light pillar emitted by the Book of Life and Death, suppressing and refining the struggling Six Paths Wheel. The sudden change caused Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, Wang Lin, Jie Luo Shi and the others to be extremely shocked as they looked at the strange scene in front of them. On the Yujing Mountain, Shi Tianfang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he stared at Su Anda, who suddenly attacked Six Paths Wheel as if he had turned into Xianmen Tianzong's helper. Su Anda smiled and said, "Don't misunderstand, I am also very interested in Xianmen Tianzong's treasures, but in order to obtain them, one must be strong enough. What I am doing now is increasing my strength." Shi Tianfang looked at the Book of Life and Death in shock. He felt the power contained in it and his eyes were filled with realization, so it's true. Su Anda used his arcane energy to transmit his voice to him. "Do you understand now? According to seniority, you should call me Great Grand Marshal Uncle Xing, although I haven't really met my eldest senior brother a few times." Shi Tianfang took a deep breath. Although he had some doubts before, it was not until today that he was sure that the founder of the reincarnation sect, Taoist reincarnation, was the same as Su Anda, the Hall Master of the Underworld. They were both the inheritors of the ancient king of the underworld. However, when Taoist reincarnation and Su Anda practiced the king of the underworld, they also constantly added their own understanding to improve and change the Six Paths Wheel. Su Anda said, "If it were other treasures, it would be fine, but eldest senior brother refined the Six Paths Wheel under the guidance of the king of the underworld. It was originally one of the several paths that he prepared for the Book of Life and Death, and now it's just the right place. That being said, Shi Tianfang did not have such a high resolution to offer his six paths wheel to Su Anda to refine the Book of Life and Death. At this time, Shi Tianfang had completely realized that Su Anda had tricked him from the very beginning. His eyes suddenly turned to the yin and yang life and death array, staring at the human Tao master Zhang Enrui, who was fighting with Wu Tong and Luo Qingwu. At this time, Zhang Enrui also happened to look at him, smiled and nodded, but did not say anything. While refining the six paths wheel with the Book of Life and Death, Su Anda cast out 3 life and death nether Tao fruits at once, which were all half black and half white. On the black side of the 3 Tao fruits, there was a figure that appeared. The first one was an old man with a long beard. His eyes were sharp and his body was surrounded by sword qi. He was like a peerless divine sword that could slash the heavens and the earth. The second one was a middle-aged Confucian scholar holding a book of poetry and reciting. Suddenly, the sound of reciting filled the void, and the power of the righteous Tao of heaven and earth spread out. The third one was a handsome man in a brocade robe. His eyes were flashing with golden flames and red and blue lights. His body was emitting a desolate and ancient aura. When they saw the third figure, Xiao Zhen'er and Gu Peng in the yin and yang life and death array shuddered. King Tang. This middle-aged man in brocade robe was one of their ancestors, the younger brother of the ancient emperor. He died in the battle to dethrone the king of the underworld. After the ancient emperor ascended to the throne, he was conferred the title of King Tang. Before he died, he was also a Tao Reunion Yuan Shin expert. Without the six paths wheel as his opponent, Wang Lin took a deep look at Su Anda and the Book of Life and Death. In the end, he still charged at Shi Tianfang on the Jing Mountain. But the 3 life and death nether Tao fruits that Su Anda cast out turned from black to white, and the 3 experts in the Tao fruits turned from illusory to real. They walked out from the Tao fruits and launched their attacks at Wang Lin and Shi Tianfang respectively. To Su Anda, in order to turn the Book of Life and Death into a creation, he also wanted the Jing Mountain, the white jade pillar, and the light ball in the yin-yang sea. Shi Tianfang stared at the struggling six paths wheel, who was gradually being refined and devoured by the Book of Life and Death. He took a deep breath and threw out the third Taoist reincarnation's talisman. Taoist reincarnation's arcane energy manifested and blocked the attack that was coming at Shi Tianfang. Upon seeing this, Su Anda's eyes flashed slightly, and Zhang Enrui's voice sounded in his ears. As far as I know, he really only has 2 talismans. This third one is either newly obtained, or he has been secretly hiding it for a long time. Su Anda narrowed his eyes slightly. His abyss-like eyes instantly turned pitch black, without any light. He put his palms together, and the dazzling light emitted by the Book of Life and Death turned completely black. The six paths wheel had the intention to perish together with Su Anda and the Book of Life and Death. He cast the six paths destruction and reshaped the art of reincarnation. The power of the six paths destruction and reshaped the reincarnation was even stronger than Shi Tianfang's six paths reincarnation Tao fruit. Under the six paths destruction and reshaped the reincarnation, the Book of Life and Death started to tremble. But now the light beam turned black, and the six paths wheels struggle stopped. The black light slowly returned to the Book of Life and Death. The aura of the Book of Life and Death changed. First, it disappeared without a trace. Then, a powerful aura that controlled the cycle of life and death emerged. It was perfect and flawless, like a real world of the dead. Shi Tianfang closed his eyes and stopped looking at the Book of Life and Death and Su Anda. Instead, he concentrated on communicating with the Jing mountain beneath him. As long as he could refine this celestial mountain, all the losses would be worth it. By then, he could take his revenge on Su Anda later. There was still hope for him to seek revenge on Su Anda, punish Zhang Enrui and kill Wang Lin. As long as he could refine this Jade Jing mountain beneath him. Seeing this, Li Yuanfang was about to crush the talisman in his hand. But suddenly, he felt the mystic heaven treasure tree beneath him tremble. Not only the mystic heaven treasure tree, but also the purple qi outside the mountain and Jade Jing mountain itself. Shi Tianfang was startled. He saw that the void around Jade Jing mountain had changed. Space and time were twisting violently. One after another, invisible bands of light appeared in the void. They crisscrossed and formed a light screen that covered Jade Jing mountain. Su Anda, Jie Luoshi, and Xiao Dongtian were all shocked. Even the pages of the Book of Life and Death started to shake. The Tao integration stage cultivators were all dazed. It was as if they could see Lin Feng's face smiling at them. Jade Jing Mountain welcomes you. The invisible bands of light broke through the void and suddenly appeared around Shi Tianfang, entangling him. Shocked, Shi Tianfang tried to escape, but he found that it was useless. In the next moment, the invisible bands of light lit up at the same time. They were dazzling and then shattered. No! Shi Tianfang watched this happen, but he could do nothing to stop it. Immortal heavenly divine light. Shatter. 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit. Shatter. The 4th talisman of the reincarnation Taoist. It was torn apart. The great curse of 9 deaths. It was useless. The explosive increase in power was instantly used up. This was the secret technique of the reincarnation sect, the reincarnation art of rebirth. He could not use it. His primordial spirit was completely sealed. His connection with the resurrection treasure he had left in the depths of the sect had been severed. He had used all his techniques, but they were all useless. Shi Tianfang could only watch as he was shattered along with the invisible bands of light. He was destroyed, turned into nothingness, and disappeared from this world. A primordial spirit Tao integration stage cultivator had been completely obliterated. Chapter 862. In the Spirit Sea, at the border between the Sea of Light and the Spirit Sea world, in the Ball of Light, Lin Feng's main body and his Thunder Dragon clone both had their eyes closed, sitting opposite each other. His God of War clone sat to the side and stared at the heavenly scarlet golden orb above him. He watched as streams of light surged into the orb and shot out, landing on his and Brontosaurus clone. The God of War clone suddenly blinked. His eyes flickered as an image appeared in his mind. On the familiar Jade Capital Mountain, the defensive formation of the All Heavens Hall had taken effect. It had turned into a seemingly thin but tough light membrane that protected the entire mountain. However, the illusory figure of an old man in a traditional robe and a tall hat had unleashed a great power to restrict the defensive formation of the All Heavens Hall. A handsome young man in a white robe, who looked to be around 14 or 15 years old, took the opportunity to pass through the light membrane and set foot on the peak of Jade Capital Mountain. The eyes of Lin Feng's God of War clone flickered coldly. Reincarnation Taoist? Reincarnation sect Master Shi Tianfang? The image disappeared in a flash. He could not see what happened next. Hey friend, you're here for my Jade Capital Mountain, right? Welcome, there's a surprise waiting for you. Lin Feng smiled. Even though the image disappeared in a flash, Lin Feng could still see that, apart from the defensive formation of the All Heavens Hall, an intense battle was taking place in the yin and yang life and death formation on the outer layer. Vaguely, 3 huge Taiji diagrams that shared the same origin as him were glowing brightly, shocking the world. It looks like Little Yen, Little Lin, and Tianhao have all achieved the nascent divinity realm. Not bad, not bad. Lin Feng was overjoyed. However, Lin Feng was infuriated by the fact that enemies had invaded Jade Capital Mountain. The God of War clone stood up and walked around his and Brontosaurus clone. His gaze moved back and forth between the heavenly scarlet golden orb and the ocean of light outside. In the ocean of light, paths were flickering continuously, filling up the ocean of light and repairing the damage that the Yu Wang heavenly ocean had inflicted on his spirit sea. Purple and white light flickered from time to time on those invisible belts of light. The white light had the upper hand, but the purple light was also extremely tenacious. It was at a disadvantage but did not collapse, making it difficult for the white light to turn its advantage into a victory. Lin Feng stared at the white and purple light and muttered to himself, "Now isn't the time for you to race to reappear in the world, but everyone in Taishu Temple, I can't just sit and watch the spirit sea fall into your hands. In addition, I still need everyone to stay out of this world for a period of time. Only then will it be convenient for me to do things after I go out." Lin Feng's eyelids drooped slightly as a faint light flashed across his squinted eyes. He let out a long sigh. "I want to thank both of you for helping me save a lot of time. Now that the time has come, let's begin." Lin Feng's true body, whose eyes had always been closed, suddenly opened his eyes at this moment. When his eyes opened and closed, boundless light flashed. In an instant, it was as though a layer of creation was born and destroyed, the creation and destruction of heaven and earth, reproduction and change, all the way to nirvana, and then the cycle began again. His Brontosaurus clone also opened his eyes at this moment. The dense purple light in his eyes almost condensed into substance, as though they were resplendent purple crystals. A Taiji tattoo appeared on the forehead of Lin Feng's true body and rotated continuously. From the Taiji tattoo, an illusory light shadow was gradually projected. The shape of the light shadow wasn't fixed, and it was constantly changing. There was a vast starry sky, a vast land, an azure blue sea, and a sky full of wind and flowing clouds. Suddenly, it would transform into a high mountain range, a long river, a long lake, a barren desert with quicksand, and a carpet of green grass. Other than everything in the natural world, there were also many intelligent life forms. There were tigers and leopards, birds, fish, insects, and even humans. Sometimes, the light shadow would transform into some inconspicuous things like a rock, a blade of grass, a speck of dust, a ray of sunlight, and so on. And so on and so forth. But all of these were all things in the world, the creation of all living beings. Black and white light flashed continuously on these light shadows. As the light shadows changed, Lin Feng's mind also seemed to have passed through countless paths. He felt as though he had transformed into the eternal starry sky of the universe, sitting and watching the waves rise and fall, and the stars in the sky, circulating endlessly, performing the most magnificent and mysterious scene in the world together. He felt as though he had transformed into a thick and boundless vast land, silently bearing the weight of all things. Silently, it nourished the growth of plants and gave birth to thousands of living beings. He felt as though he had transformed into a vast and boundless sea, the ebb and flow of the tide. When it was calm, it contained everything, and when it was violent, it turned into a destructive tsunami. Countless living beings in the water wandered in it, enjoying themselves. He felt as though he had transformed into the gusts of wind between heaven and earth, blowing the clouds and rolling them. He was formless and unpredictable. The mountains stood tall, regardless of the erosion of the wind and rain, the exposure of the sun, the traces of the moon and the sun, the activities of the beasts in the forest, and the roads that humans dug up on the mountains. Long rivers and lakes, the water surged endlessly, the lakes as smooth as a mirror. There were fish leaping out of the water, pelicans landing to catch them, and people rowing boats, walking on the water. Scholars and literati sighed at the passing of time. The desert quicksand, the scorching sun overhead, the rolling heat waves caused the light to distort, making the scene in front of one's eyes seem illusory and unreal. There was a lost traveler, struggling to crawl towards the oasis in the mirage. The green grass was like a cushion. Through the dense foliage of the forest, mottled sunlight shone down. When it landed on the grass, it formed scattered spots of light. The ground trembled, and the branches and leaves trembled. A small deer passed through the forest and flew far away. Lin Feng's mind seemed to have transformed into that deer, running non-stop. Suddenly, he fell to the ground, feeling a sharp pain in his leg. He whimpered and turned to look, but it was a huge animal trap, causing his hind leg to be covered in blood, revealing the eerie white bone. A moment later, a tall hunter walked out of the forest. Following the trail of blood, he found the little deer that was struggling to crawl. He grabbed its neck and lifted it up. Lin Feng looked at the fawn in his hand. His mind at this moment had already turned into this hunter. The hunter's heart was filled with joy. His family was waiting for him to return with a harvest. There was his old mother, there was his beloved wife, there was his son who had just turned 1 year old and was full of vigor. Walking in the dense forest, Lin Feng suddenly looked up, seeing a rare bird landing on a tree, its feathers gorgeous. If he could catch it, the men in the city would definitely like it. When the time comes, he could sell it for a good price, and he could get a few pieces of cloth for his old mother and wife to make new clothes for them. He put down the deer he hunted and carefully climbed up the tree. He was already as careful as he could, but who knew that he would still startle the bird? With a flap of its wings, it flew away. Lin Feng's mind seemed to have transformed into that bird, flying in the air. He even turned his head back to look at the annoyed hunter on the tree, letting out a few crisp chirps from his mouth, as if mocking that clumsy human. After that, in the blink of an eye, Lin Feng's mind had already walked through all the living beings in the world. Next, he turned into an unremarkable mountain rock, silently lying in the cold wind, not moving for a long time, until a mountain climber accidentally kicked him off the cliff. Lin Feng didn't feel anything. He tumbled all the way down, bumping into things, and finally fell to the bottom of the valley. His body was broken in many places, and he was no longer recognizable, but he didn't feel any pain. Silently, he continued to lie at the bottom of the valley, as if apart from changing his position, nothing had changed. He turned into a blade of grass, silently rooted in the soil, walking through spring, summer, autumn, and winter without feeling anything, alternating between withered yellow and emerald green. He didn't move, didn't think, and just let time pass. He turned into a ray of sunlight. From the moment he was born to the moment he fell to the ground and disappeared. It was only a short moment. But as long as the sun didn't set, he seemed to exist forever, endlessly. The sunlight absorbed by the photosynthesis of the plants on the ground was him, and the sunlight that still existed in the air was also him. Eternity and a moment seemed to merge into one at this moment, but he couldn't tell which one was him. In this way, Lin Feng's mind walked through the thousands of things of creation, both conscious and unconscious. He seemed to have turned into an independent world, but also seemed to be no longer himself. The concept of me gradually became blurry, confusing, and difficult to distinguish. But Lin Feng's expression was calm, and his state of mind was stable. I am the world, but the world is not me. The body of Lin Feng's original body gradually became blurry, but the light shadow above his head became clearer and clearer. The light shadow seemed to be independent of the spiritual sea world, independent of the vast thousand worlds, and independent of the great Tianyuan world, turning into a brand new world of creation. In this world, all things changed, and it was very mysterious. Although this world was still immature, still illusory, it had really jumped out of this world. At this point, Lin Feng took the first step to be equal to heaven and man. From now on, man was no longer under heaven. Everything in the world, from their own point of view, no matter who it was an independent individual, different from the rest. But if one left the point of view of the individual and stood from the point of view of the world, they were all just a part of this creation. The cultivators of the human clan cultivated in order to be able to transcend this kind of ordinary people. Even from the macro point of view of the world of creation, they were still different from the rest. Refining the spirit to return to the void was the first step to transcend and become independent. It was the process of breaking through and then establishing, jumping out of this world, distinguishing the true meaning of the great Tao, and forming a world of its own. Rays of light surged ceaselessly, yin and yang, life and death, light and darkness, eternity and instant, blue sky and yellow springs, reality and unreality, vastness and minuscule, creation and destruction. Numerous grand Taos converged towards the figure of light. At the same time, Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger made a move. However, it did not condense a Dharma body of the return to void. Instead, boundless runes lit up on its body, and all of these runes converged toward the forehead of the Brontosaurus doppelganger. More and more runes gathered at the center of its forehead, and a large amount of light scattered, as if they had transformed into tangible ribbons that extended between heaven and earth, becoming even more closely connected with heaven and earth. The void seemed to have lit up, and the Brontosaurus doppelganger's heart trembled slightly. It felt as if an incomparably vast will was making contact with it. There were no obvious thought fluctuations emanating from this will, but it truly existed. At the same time, it was incomparably majestic, and it was unprecedentedly vast. The doppelganger still retained a clear consciousness and thought process, and the vast will had no intention of interfering with it. However, it felt as if the doppelganger was gradually becoming an extension of the will, and the two of them seemed to be gradually fusing as one. Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger felt as if its demonic soul and bloodline were both undergoing earth-shattering changes. Chapter 863. The inscriptions on the body of Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone converged toward his forehead, but when he established a connection with the vast will, a large amount of light dispersed from his forehead and returned to his body. This light enshrouded the Brontosaurus clone, causing his demonic soul, body, and bloodline to undergo an earth-shattering transformation. When all of this was over, a strange inscription gradually appeared on the Brontosaurus clone's forehead. Once the inscription was completely formed, it meant that Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone had cultivated to the primordial true spirit stage. This inscription was something that even primordial true spirit stage great demonic beasts had to condense into a true spirit divine vein. In the future, they would have to rely on this true spirit divine vein to guide the power of the stars and refine them. The primordial true spirit stage great demonic beasts of the primordial true spirit stage were completely different from human cultivators. This primordial true spirit stage was a true spirit formed by the heaven and earth of this vast thousand world. Once it was rooted into one's demonic soul and bloodline, it would form a true spirit divine vein and become even more closely aligned with heaven and earth. Even though it was a tangible body, it was like an invisible extension of heaven and earth. At the same time, the true spirit divine vein also represented the foundation of one's bloodline. Tracing back to their roots, all of the demonic beasts in the heavenly desolate land had at least reached the primordial true spirit stage and condensed a true spirit divine vein. Only then could they continue their bloodline and pass it down from generation to generation. This way, their descendants would not become wild beasts and would need to regain intelligence before they could cultivate. As Lin Feng's main body began to condense a true spirit divine vein, his Brontosaurus clone also began to gradually condense a true spirit divine vein. However, compared to other human cultivators who refined their spirits to return to the void, or great sages of the demonic beasts who condensed a true spirit divine vein, Lin Feng's side was a little different. The great Tao of the spirit sea world was connected to the ball of light like invisible ribbons of light, and the dazzling and chaotic light in the ocean of light was also constantly flowing into the ball of light. Within the sea of light, there was an invisible belt of light that was constantly being filled up. White light and purple light flashed in unison in a dazzling display, but they were also continuously surging into the ball of light and being swept up by the heavenly sea golden bead. Then, they were projected onto the true spirit divine tattoos on the foreheads of Lin Feng's true body and the lightning dragon clone. Lin Feng's main body and Brontosaurus's avatar had established a profound connection through the celestial scarlet orb. The light and shadow above the main body's head gradually condensed into a solid body, and the outline was clear and complete. After much planning and hard work, he had finally succeeded in refining his spirit to return to the void in this spirit sea. The essence soul embodiment was the manifestation of a cultivator's Tao validation dermic formulation's will. When different people reached the essence soul realm using the same dermic formulation, the essence soul avatars they obtained were basically the same. There might be some differences in the manifestation of their dermic powers and auras, but the essence was the same. The Return to Void stage cultivator's Return to Void stage was a level higher than the essence soul embodiment. It also transcended the form of the cultivator's Tao validation dermic formulation's will, and incorporated the cultivator's own understanding of the great Tao. Therefore, the Return to Void stage cultivator's Return to Void stage was unique. Even if they cultivated the same Tao technique, the Return to Void stage's dermic formulations would be very different. Take the current Mount Shu sword sex venerated swordsman, for example. His essence soul embodiment was a huge bronze broadsword, and his Return to Void stage body was a sword-wielding man with a powerful aura. He was 10 feet tall and wielded a huge sword. His expression was dignified, and his eyes were like lightning. Like him, the junior Broken Mountain sword sex Ning Lang, who had also used the Little Shang sword to prove his essence soul embodiment, was also basically a huge bronze broadsword. Ning Lang's sword heart was shattered, and it was almost impossible for him to refine his spirit to return to the void. However, if he could successfully ascend to the Return to Void stage, then his Return to Void stage physique would definitely be different from the current venerated swordsman's, both in appearance and inside. And the current venerated swordsman's Return to Void stage physique was also different from the previous venerated swordsman's Return to Void stage. Lin Feng's essence soul embodiment was an extremely vast black and white Tai Chi diagram that seemed to encompass the entire galaxy. It was precisely the manifestation of the power and will of his heavenly Tao virtue scripture. And now, Lin Feng's Return to Void stage physique was shockingly exactly the same as his own. He was dressed in a purple robe with wide sleeves. His hair was not bound, and it hung loosely over his shoulders. And here I thought that I would condense a Return to Void stage physique that looked like a panda. Lin Feng smiled rather mischievously as he looked calmly into the eyes of Brontosaurus's doppelganger. A mysterious connection was established between the two through the heavenly scarlet golden bead. On the forehead of Lin Feng's Return to Void stage physique, a true spirit divine pattern that was exactly the same as the one on Brontosaurus's doppelganger suddenly appeared. Meanwhile, countless miracles also flashed through the eyes of Brontosaurus's doppelganger. At this moment, his powerful and massive body was constantly fluctuating between illusory and corporeal. In one instant, it was a dragon body that was brimming with boundless demonic power. In the next instant it had transformed into balls of light. It was as if it was a Return to Void stage physique that a human cultivator had attained after refining their spirit to return to the void. The two of them verified one another before returning to normal. Brontosaurus's doppelganger reverted back to its demonic form. A vast demonic power shook the void as a true spirit divine pattern appeared on its forehead. It was mysterious and powerful. As its dragon eyes opened and closed, a shocking purple light burst forth. After the process of condensing the true spirit divine pattern, the purple scales on Brontosaurus's doppelganger had now turned white. As its scales opened and closed, bolts of terrifying lightning flashed. These bolts of lightning were extremely strange. They were not of a single color. Instead, they were a combination of crimson, yellow, green, and blue. Each bolt of lightning was like a thin thread of 4 different colors intertwining together. Although the 4 colors combined to form a single bolt of lightning, they were clearly distinguishable. On top of the 4-colored lightning, there were also black and white colors that flashed, adding to its power. This was the 8 desolation divine thunder that Lin Feng had deduced from the Brontosaurus race to a new height. It had transformed into the 4 symbols yin-yang divine thunder, which was much more powerful than before. His Brontosaurus was completely different from the primordial sky dragon Brontosaurus race of Tianhuang mainland. At this moment, Lin Feng's main body smiled faintly as a system notification sounded in his mind. Congratulations to the host for creating the 3rd chapter of the Heavenly Tao Sutra, Yin-Yang chapter. Congratulations to the host for successfully creating the 3rd chapter of the Heavenly Tao Sutra, Yin-Yang Fusion True Sutra. An image appeared in Lin Feng's mind. Chaos broke apart and turned into yin-yang, giving birth to all things. Tao, heaven, earth, time, person, matter, heart, life, all of them were born. Heaven and earth, void, reality, light and heavy, up and down, clear and turbid, sun and moon, brightness and darkness, rise and fall, enlightenment and confusion, letting go and persistence. Day and night, movement, heat and cold, fast and slow, male and female, image, beginning and end, spring, summer, autumn, winter, thunder and lightning, rain and snow. Coincidence, advance and retreat, gain and loss, gather and disperse, open and close, in and out, inside and outside, north, future and past, eternity and instant. Life and death, longevity and destruction, hardness and softness, rise and fall, the layers of principles were opposing yet unified, fusing with one another and giving birth to all things, establishing the beginning of heaven and earth. As for the principles of all things in heaven and earth, they could be traced back to the source, and everything returned to one. Lin Feng had never felt that his understanding of the various principles of heaven and earth was as thorough as it was now. He smiled faintly. The true spirit divine pattern on his forehead had already disappeared, and his void reversion dharma body flashed. Although there seemed to be no changes and he still looked like himself, he had actually removed his dharma body and was still in the form of his essence spirit. Lin Feng stretched out his finger and pointed in the void. An ancient and desolate, grand and majestic bell sound rang, and Lin Feng's dharma treasure, the bell of creation, appeared. The bell of creation vibrated and turned into a huge pitch-black stone door. The surface was covered with thousands of relief carvings of scenes. In the ancient desolation, it exuded a strong aura of life. The first change of the bell of creation, the gate of creation. It represented the birth of infinite life and the creation of infinite things. It contained the great power to open up a place and create a world. Lin Feng looked at the gate of creation and changed his hand seals. In an instant, hundreds of millions of magical powers were injected into the gate of creation. At the same time, the great Tao of heaven and earth in the spirit sea fell down and guided the gate of creation. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Open." A joyful voice came from the gate of creation, "Yes, Master." With a boom, the gate made a muffled sound and slowly opened to both sides. An invisible river flowed out of the gate that opened to both sides. The river flowed at a steady pace, but it had a power that would never stop. The second transformation of the bell of creation, the river of time. It represented all things and all the years of life. Time passed without return, and everything grew and aged in the long river of time. It contained the power to dominate the passage of time. In the river, a 5- or 6-year-old boy emerged from the river. He smiled and bowed towards Lin Feng. "Good fortune greets Master." It was the original spirit of the bell of creation, Fate Creation Boy. "Follow me home, old Master." Lin Feng smiled and landed on the river of time. The surging river swept the Brontosaurus doppelganger, the doppelganger of the god of war, the heavenly scarlet golden pearl, and Tao Master Liubois outside the light ball. The surface of the heavenly scarlet golden pearl emitted layers of purple brilliance, guiding the river of time into the sea of light. The pearl's brilliance flickered, and in the sea of light, the invisible ribbons of light that were constantly filling and repairing the gap were pulled away by Lin Feng's river of time. The purple light and white light that were competing against each other suddenly became chaotic. Whether it was the people of the Taishu Temple or the Yudu clan, they immediately realized that something was wrong. Under the influence of the sudden intervention of the third party, the white light and the purple light that were originally fighting dislocated. This dislocation instantly formed an extremely terrifying twisting power that suddenly burst out. In the sea of light, the light that had gradually become peaceful and orderly suddenly became chaotic again. In the spirit sea, the invisible ribbons of light formed by the great Tao shook violently. The wound that was originally opened by the Yu Huang heavenly sea had been constantly being repaired and was close to being completely healed. However, at this moment, under the influence of the sudden dislocation of the power of the people of the Taishu Temple and the Yudu clan, it was torn again. When both sides tried to save it, they found that this tear contained an irreversible and unchangeable meaning. They couldn't save it. The consequence of this re-tearing of the spirit sea was that the entire world of the spirit sea began to shake violently, as if a giant had been awakened. Chapter 864. The world of the spirit sea trembled violently, and the originally peaceful world suddenly became restless. Formless belts of light formed by the great Tao of heaven and earth lit up, and the boundless power caused the entire world to shake. No matter if it was Lin Feng, Tao Venerable One, or the rest, an image appeared in their consciousnesses. It was a huge foreign space that seemed to cover the heaven and earth. It was connected to the boundless world everywhere and stuck closely together. It was like a membrane that was attached to the surface of the boundless world. However, if one took a closer look, they would feel that this foreign space seemed to be an independent point that was like a speck of dust. At that moment, this world that was like a plane started to distort violently before stretching out continuously. Powerful energy gushed out, and the great demons of Yudu and the 1,000 worlds that were shrouded in black fog trembled in unison. The white halos on the 3 long horns on their heads were plated with a mysterious purple pattern that didn't dissipate from start to finish. The connection between them and the spirit sea was also temporarily severed, and only that halo was left. The violent power of the world of the spirit sea started to break through the void and enter the dimensional world to suppress the descendants of Yu Huang's celestial sea. The expressions of all the great demons of Yudu changed slightly, and they hurriedly cast spells together to conceal the dimensional world once again, blocking the senses of the world of the spirit sea from them. The white halo on the horns on the heads of the Yudu descendants gradually faded away, but all of the demons of Yudu burst out with unresigned and furious roars. They could feel the gate of the spirit sea closing once again, and it returned to its previous sealed state. A few great demons of Yudu with demon power that shook heaven and earth howled in unison, and the descendants of the younger generation immediately quietened down. Even though we can't control the spirit sea, Taishu Temple and that third power that suddenly interfered are the same. Even though the halo mark on the spirit sea hasn't completely faded away, it's different from before. At least a few years, at most a few decades, and our race will be able to completely break free from the restraints of the spirit sea. The spirit sea being sealed this time is also different from the time 10,000 years ago. At most 100 years later, it will definitely reopen. With the foundation that we've laid today, we can fight again at that time. It was different from the Yudu race that was originally outside the spirit sea and only met with rebuff. The people in the Taishu Temple who were in the spirit sea suffered even more. The talismans left behind by the Taishu Taoist, when Qiyang, Yuehua Tian, Yan Xinghe, and Huang Chen all exploded and turned into dust. A sudden, violent power shook Lord Tai and the others out of his spiritual sea. The spiritual sea was sealed again. Lord Tai and the others did not have the time to regret their failure. They found that even though they had been shaken out of the spiritual sea, the violent world of the spiritual sea was still pressing down on them in the void. Shoichi Dashin had an expressionless face. It's definitely the master of profound gate. He interfered in the struggle between us and Yudu and cleverly guided us to borrow the power of us and Yudu to mend the spirit sea to tear that gap open again. The spirit sea has been sealed again. If we want to open it again, it will probably take close to 100 years. He sure has a good plan. Does he want to fight with us 100 years later? Lord Tai had a calm expression and sighed softly. He stood in front of Xianlin Taoist, Yun Yuanjin, Lin Daohan, Kai Fengzhou, and Lord Yuan with Shoichi Dashin. They worked together to resist the suppression of the spirit sea. The suppression this time wasn't as violent as the one at the Yuhuang Celestial Sea, but it still temporarily suppressed the 7 people of the Taishu Temple in the void, making it hard for them to escape. Silently, Lord Tai said, "We will come again 100 years later. The foundation we have laid today can still be used then. My Taishu Temple, the Master of Profound Gate, and the 3 families of Yuda race, we still have the greatest advantage." Xianlin Taoist didn't say anything. The rich emotions in his eyes had turned into emptiness and indifference. Lord Yuan of the conservative faction frowned, and his face turned cold. Kai Fengzhou shook his head continuously and smiled bitterly. The Master of Profound Gate, good move. Yun Yuanjin had a smile that was not a smile, and Lin Daohan's expression returned to its usual calmness. Neither of them said anything. Unlike the people of the Taishu Temple, who were temporarily suppressed in the void by the Spirit Sea, Lin Feng, who had rushed out through the gap in the Spirit Sea that looked like a sea of light, didn't wait for the suppression of the Spirit Sea to take effect. He immediately took out the boundary-breaking stone. As the light flowed, Lin Feng had already left the void and returned to the boundless world. The moment he rushed out of the gap in the Spirit Sea, the system beep rang in his mind. Congratulations to the host's personal disciple, Yang Qing, for advancing to the Yuanying realm. Congratulations to the host's personal disciple, Xiao Yan, for proving his primordial spirit realm. The host has received a reward. Congratulations to the host's personal disciple, Shi Tianhao, for proving his primordial spirit realm. The host has received a reward. Congratulations to the host's personal disciple, Wang Lin, for proving his primordial spirit realm. The host has received a reward. Lin Feng calmed himself down and looked around. He realized that he was on the East Sea. The random teleportation of the boundary-breaking stone was not too bad this time. It just happened to send him to the human world in the Divine Land. After forcefully interrupting the effect of the boundary-breaking stone's fixed-point return, Lin Feng's mind moved, and his connection with Yujing Mountain was completely restored. A cold light flashed in his eyes and he said, "Mount Shu Sword Sect, Underworld Hall, Reincarnation Sect, East Heaven Gate, you guys are very good." With a slight thought, Lin Feng's eyes became colder. "Golden Cicada, so there's an old friend like you. Good. Very good." Lin Feng looked in the direction of the land in the west. His gaze seemed to pierce through the void and land on Yujing Mountain. The Book of Life and Death has finally been completely refined? Instead of devouring the creation artifact embryo in the Yin-Yang Sea, it devoured the reincarnation sect's 6 paths of reincarnation? You want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? You sure have a big appetite. A bright light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. Oh, is Little E going to succeed as well? At this moment, on Yujing Mountain, Su Anda, Jie Luoshi, and Xiao Dongtian were all dumbfounded as they looked at the void that had returned to normal. They watched as the invisible ribbons of light gradually disappeared. Once again, they could not detect them with their cultivation levels. At the same time, they saw that the peak of the mountain had become empty again. The sect leader of the reincarnation sect, Shi Tianfang, had disappeared as if he had never existed. Shi Tianfang, an expert of the Tao integration realm, had finally unified the reincarnation sect after it had been divided for 10,000 years. But just like that, he had been wiped off the face of this world without any room for resistance. In all fairness, even without the talismans of the reincarnation Taoist, Su Anda could easily defeat Shi Tianfang among all the experts of the Tao integration realm present, even without the Book of Life and Death. In fact, even if he had to fight against Shi Tianfang and the 6 paths of life and death at the same time, Su Anda would still be confident enough to deal with them. Although Jie Luoshi's sword heart was damaged and activating the heavenly immortal sword qi was a great burden on him, he was still confident that he could defeat Shi Tianfang in a one-on-one fight. However, he might not be able to kill him. Xiao Dongtian might not easily win against Shi Tianfang, but at least he would not be at a disadvantage. However, such an expert who was at the same level as them was instantly killed by those strange, invisible light ribbons. Seeing this scene, even Su Anda, who had finally created the Book of Life and Death and had a Dharma treasure of creation in his hand, shuddered with fear. He asked himself if he could kill Shi Tianfang so easily in an instant even with the Book of Life and Death in his hand, unless Shi Tianfang did not dodge or defend himself. Instead, he just stood there and stretched out his neck to let him hit him. However, Shi Tianfang was obviously not that stupid. In the face of the sudden attack, he used all kinds of defensive methods and the 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit, the reincarnation Taoist talisman, the immortal divine light of heavenly Tao, the reincarnation art, and the reincarnation rebirth art. Under such circumstances, even Jie Luoshi could not kill him. Su Anda had to spend a lot of effort to activate the Book of Life and Death to kill him. However, under such circumstances, right in front of them, Shi Tianfang was instantly killed without leaving a corpse. All of Shi Tianfang's methods were useless. They could not be described as papier-mâché. They were like air, as if they did not exist at all. More importantly, Su Anda and the others had no idea what was going on. This was what they were most afraid of. The unknown was always the most terrifying. However, Su Anda and the others quickly reacted. No, the problem lies in this immortal mountain. Only those who tried to refine Yujing Mountain would encounter the calamity just now. Otherwise, they wouldn't have waited until we were about to completely break through the celestial sect of wonders and not come into play. Thinking about this, the experts who were attacking the mountain became more and more excited. They looked at Yujing Mountain with more and more eager eyes. However, they quickly suppressed their greed. The terrible power just now was strange and overbearing. It was too shocking. Before they knew the depth of the power, it was really not good to act rashly. No one knew whether or not that terrifying power was a one-time thing, and whether or not Shi Tianfang had used up all of it. If they rushed forward at this time, they would probably end up like Shi Tianfang. Apart from Su Anda, who had the Book of Life and Death, who might be able to resist it a little, everyone else present would probably die if they touched it. Su Anda did not want to try. His target was the light ball in the yin-yang sea. The reason why he used the 6 paths of reincarnation to refine the Book of Life and Death was because he wanted to refine the light ball after he got it. This way, he would have 2 creation treasures in his hand. It would be best if he could get the white jade pillar from Yingzhou Fairy Mountain. With no hope for Yujing Mountain, Su Anda's desire for other treasures had increased. With the Book of Life and Death in hand, he had the capital. As the Book of Life and Death flipped, the light and shadow of a grand world appeared in the sky above Yujing Mountain. The world did not seem dark and terrifying, but it was lifeless and gray. There was no sign of life. Wherever the gray shrouded, everything seemed to have come to a stop. Everything in the world became colorless gray, and all life lost its luster. However, it was not extinct. Instead, it entered a wonderful world where all the rules were different. A world that belonged to the dead. As the gray world suppressed it, the yin and yang life and death array immediately began to disintegrate. Li Yuanfeng's expression was still calm, but his face gradually turned pale. He looked up at the mysterious heaven-time-light grotto heaven above his head. At this moment, in the mysterious heaven-time-light grotto heaven, a young scholar dressed in purple and white robes was sitting cross-legged under a small mysterious heaven treasure tree with his eyes closed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.